Hello, friends. Welcome to the Sleep Aliens. Did you know that nearly 80% of those who watch my videos aren't subscribed? If you enjoy the content, I'd truly appreciate it if you hit that subscribe button. It helps a lot. Also, don't forget to leave a like and share your thoughts in the comments. By the way, where are you watching from? Let me know in the comments. I have been working for the United States Coast Guard for 12 years. I spent most of that time on Lake Superior, patrolling stations on Michigan's Upper Peninsula at night. My name is Noah Halbridge, and I'm writing this because what happened on November 14th last year is stuck in my head like a stone, and I just can't shake it off. I tried to record it as an atmospheric phenomenon or equipment failure, but the facts tell a different story. The same goes for what happened to my partner, Reed Galway, that night. Reed was 28 years old, brilliant with electronics and the kind of guy who asked good questions without putting you on the spot. He'd been with our unit for 3 years and knew the water well enough to trust his instincts. We'd been on dozens of patrols together. Cold nights, rough waters, mechanical failures, lost canoeists, drunk boaters who still thought it was summer in November. We handled it all without drama. That's our job. You stay calm, follow procedure, and get everyone home safe. The night of November 14th started normal. We launched from the station at Whitefish Point just after 1900 hours in the USCGC Morrow, a 47-foot motor lifeboat built for search and rescue. The air temperature was 31 degrees. The water was colder. Forecast called for light winds and patchy fog over the eastern basin. We were assigned a standard patrol route, northeast along the shipping lane, then a slow arc back toward the point. 4 hours on the water, routine checks, eyes on the radar, radio contact every 30 minutes. Reed handled the helm while I worked the navigation console. The cabin was warm. The instruments glowed soft orange, and the diesel engine hummed steady beneath our boots. Superior at night is a different animal than by day. The water turns black, and the sky sits so low you feel like you're sailing under a tarp. Lights from Whitefish Point disappeared behind us within minutes. After that, it was just us, the instruments, and the sound of the bow cutting through low swells. At 2015 hours, Reed called my attention to the radar. We've got a contact, bearing 045, about 2 miles out. I leaned over the screen. A single return, stationary, small signature. Could have been a boat with engine trouble or a buoy dragging anchor. We adjusted course and increased speed. Protocol required us to investigate any stationary contact in the shipping lane. I radioed our station and logged the approach. Morrow to Station Whitefish Point. We have a radar contact bearing 045, 2 miles. Moving to investigate. Copy that, Morrow. Keep us posted. Reed throttled up, and we pushed through a bank of low fog. Visibility dropped to maybe 50 yards. The radar contact held steady. As we closed to 1 mile, Reed frowned at the screen. It's not moving at all. No drift. And the return is clean, too clean for a small boat. I've seen plenty of odd radar behavior on Superior. Temperature inversions, dense fog, even ice chunks can give strange returns. But Reed was right. This was different. The signature looked sharp and consistent, like the object was made of something highly reflective. At half a mile, the fog thinned and the sky opened up. Stars appeared in patches between clouds. The water smoothed out into a glassy calm that felt wrong for November. No wind, no chop, just a flat, black mirror stretching in every direction. That's when I saw it. Dead ahead, maybe 300 yards off our bow, a yellow light hung in the air above the water. Not on the water, above it, roughly 6 to 8 feet above the surface, suspended without visible support. The light wasn't a beam or a glow. It was a solid sphere of pale yellow, about the size of a compact car, perfectly round, perfectly still. "You see that?" Reed asked. "I see it." We both stared. The engine idled down as Reed eased off the throttle. I grabbed the binoculars and focused on the object. Through the glass, it looked even stranger. The surface of the sphere was smooth, but not reflective. It didn't shine like metal, it didn't flicker like fire. It just existed, radiating a soft, steady yellow light that made the water beneath it look flat and dead. "What's the radar showing?" I asked. Reed checked the screen and went quiet for a moment. "Nothing." "What do you mean, nothing?" "I mean, the contact is gone. Screen's clear." I stepped over and looked. He was right. The radar showed empty water in every direction. No return where the light was. No return anywhere within 2 miles. I tapped the screen, cycled through the range settings, checked for interference. Everything functioned normally. The radar just refused to acknowledge what we could both see with our eyes. I picked up the radio. "Morrow to station Whitefish Point. We have a visual on an unidentified object. Approximately 300 yards ahead. Yellow light source, stationary, hovering above the water. Radar contact lost. Request guidance." The radio crackled. Static rolled through the channel, thick and harsh. I adjusted the squelch and tried again. More static. I switched to the backup channel, same result. Reed tried the handheld unit. Nothing but white noise. "Communications are down," Reed said. His voice stayed level, but I heard the edge in it. I made a decision. "We're moving closer, slow approach, keep the spotlight ready." Reed nodded and eased the throttle forward. The Morrow crept ahead at 3 knots. The water made no sound against the hull. That silence felt worse than any storm I'd been in. Superior is never silent. There's always wind, always motion, always the deep hum of water moving against itself. But this felt like someone had muted the entire lake. At 200 yards, the light pulsed once. A soft throb, like a heartbeat, then back to steady. My chest tightened. Reed's hand hovered over the throttle. At 100 yards, I could see details. The sphere wasn't smooth. It had a texture, faint lines running across its surface in geometric patterns, like the panels on a soccer ball, but more complex. The yellow light came from within, not from any external source. And beneath it, where the light touched the water, there was no reflection. The lake surface stayed black and flat, as if the light didn't interact with it at all. "This isn't natural," Reed said quietly. "No, it's not." At 50 yards, the light pulsed again. This time, I felt it. Not in my ears, in my chest. A low vibration that made my ribs hum and my teeth ache. Reed felt it too. He pulled back on the throttle and the Morrow drifted to a stop. We sat there, engine idling, staring at this thing that shouldn't exist. I've been trained for search and rescue, medical emergencies, fire suppression, navigation in storms, ice rescue. Nothing in my 12 years prepared me for this. "Should we try the spotlight?" Reed asked. Before I could answer, the sphere moved. Not gradually, instantly. 1 second it was 50 yards ahead. The next second it was directly above us, maybe 20 feet over the cabin roof. No transition, no sound. It just relocated itself like someone had cut it out of one spot and pasted it into another. Reed swore under his breath. I grabbed the rail and looked straight up. The sphere filled my vision. The geometric patterns were clear now, intricate and deliberate, shifting slightly like they were adjusting to maintain balance. The yellow light bathed the entire boat. I could see every rivet on the deck, every scratch on the windshield. But the light was cold. It gave no warmth. My breath still fogged in the air. The vibration returned, stronger this time. It came up through the deck, through my boots, into my bones. I could feel my heartbeat sinking to it, slowing down, then speeding up, like something was testing my rhythm. Reed staggered and caught himself on the console. "Noah, I don't feel right." His face had gone pale. Sweat beaded on his forehead despite the cold. I reached for him, but my own legs felt weak. The world tilted slightly, not physically, but perceptually. The cabin looked the same, but distances felt wrong. The console seemed farther away than it should be. My hand moved toward it, and the motion took longer than I expected. That's when I noticed the water. It wasn't moving. At all. No ripples. No swells. The entire surface of Lake Superior, as far as I could see in the dim light, had frozen into a perfect sheet of black glass. But it wasn't ice. I could see depth in it, the way you can see into deep water. It was liquid, but utterly still. The sphere pulsed a third time. This pulse was different, brighter. The yellow shifted toward white, almost blinding. I raised my arm to shield my eyes and felt the vibration spike into something painful. My vision blurred. Reed dropped to one knee. I tried to call out to him, but my voice wouldn't come. Then everything stopped. The light, the vibration, the pressure. It all cut out at once like someone threw a switch. The sphere was gone. The stars were back. The water moved again, gentle swells rocking the boat. The engine hummed its normal pitch. My watch read 22:47 hours. I blinked hard and looked at Reed. He was on the deck, breathing fast, eyes wide. I helped him up. His hands were shaking. "What just happened?" he asked. "I don't know." I checked the instruments. Radar was functioning normally. Radio channels were clear. I picked up the handset and called Station Whitefish Point. "Morrow to Station Whitefish Point, do you copy?" "Morrow, we copy." "Where have you been?" "You missed 3 check-ins." "Say again?" "You missed 3 check-ins. Your last transmission was at 2015 hours. It's now 22:47. We were about to launch a search." I looked at Reed. He stared back at me, shaken. We'd lost over 2 hours. The last thing I clearly remembered was approaching the light at 50 yards. Then the sphere moved above us. Then nothing. Now it was nearly 2.5 hours later. "Station, we experienced equipment malfunction and possible disorientation. Returning to base now." "Copy that, Morrow. Are you in need of assistance?" "Negative. We're operational. Returning under our own power." I ended the transmission and stood there in the cold cabin, trying to piece together what had just happened. Reed sat on the bench, head in his hands. "I don't remember anything after it moved over us," he said. "Do you?" "No." "Where did the time go?" I didn't have an answer. I checked the GPS log. According to the data, we'd drifted northeast for 2 hours and 17 minutes, covering almost 6 miles. But neither of us remembered moving. The engine had been running the entire time. Fuel consumption matched the time elapsed, but we had no memory of it. I started the return trip to Whitefish Point. Reed stayed quiet, staring out at the water. I kept my eyes on the instruments and my hands steady on the controls. My training told me to stay focused, stay calm, and deal with the situation in front of me. But my mind kept circling back to that sphere, the way it moved without moving, the way time folded around it like paper. We reached the station at 00:10 hours. Commander Vickers met us at the dock. He's a solid officer, mid-50s, with a face that's weathered enough storms to take most things in stride. But when he saw us step off the boat, his expression shifted. "You two look like hell. What happened out there?" I gave him the basics. Radar contact. Visual confirmation of an unidentified object. Communications failure. time discrepancy. I kept my tone factual and avoided speculation. Reed stood beside me, nodding when appropriate but not adding much. Vickers listened without interrupting. When I finished, he looked at both of us for a long moment. "You're telling me you saw a yellow sphere hovering over the water, lost radio contact, and then lost 2 hours with no memory of what happened during that time?" "Yes, sir." "And the radar didn't pick it up?" "Correct. But the GPS log shows you drifting for the entire period." "Yes, sir." He exhaled slowly through his nose. "All right, go to the medical station. Get checked out. I want vitals, blood work, everything. And I want a full written report on my desk by 0800 tomorrow." "Understood." We walked to the medical station in silence. The base medic, a young woman named Torres, ran the standard tests: blood pressure, heart rate, pupil dilation, coordination, cognitive function. She drew blood and told us the lab results would take a day or two. Everything came back normal, except for one thing. Both Reed and I had slightly elevated core temperatures. Not a fever, just 1.5 degrees higher than baseline. Torres noted it in our charts but didn't make a big deal out of it. After the exam, Reed and I sat in the break room with bad coffee and tried to make sense of it. He kept rubbing the back of his neck like it hurt. "You feel anything strange?" I asked. "My skin feels tight, like I've been out in the sun too long, but it was dark and freezing out there." I felt it too, a faint warmth under my skin, mostly on my face and hands, the parts that had been exposed to the light. It wasn't painful, just noticeable, like a mild sunburn without the redness. "We need to be careful how we write this report," I said. "If we make it sound too strange, they'll dismiss it. If we downplay it, we're not doing our job." Reed nodded. "What do you think it was?" "I don't know, but it wasn't a boat, it wasn't a buoy, it wasn't weather, and it sure as hell wasn't normal." We finished our coffee and went to our bunks. I lay in the dark for a long time, staring at the ceiling, replaying the sequence in my head. The approach, the sphere, the movement, the vibration, the blank space where 2 hours should be. None of it fit together. None of it made sense. I finally fell asleep around 0400 hours. I dreamed of yellow light and still water, and the feeling of time stretching like taffy. I woke at 06:30 to the sound of my alarm and the memory of the light still sharp in my head. My skin felt normal again. The tight, warm sensation had faded overnight. I showered, dressed in a clean uniform, and went to the galley for breakfast. Reed was already there, sitting alone with a plate of eggs he wasn't eating. "How'd you sleep?" I asked. "Didn't you?" "A little." We ate in silence. The base was starting to wake up around us. Other crew members filtered in, joking about the cold, complaining about shifts, the usual morning noise. None of them knew what we'd seen. None of them had any reason to. It felt like we'd come back from a different world, and no one noticed. At 07:45, I sat down at a computer terminal and started the report. I kept it clinical: timeline, coordinates, radar anomaly, visual observation, communications failure, time gap, GPS log, medical check. I attached screenshots from the navigation system and the fuel consumption chart. I didn't use the word UFO. I didn't speculate about extraterrestrial origins. I just described what happened in plain language and let the facts sit on their own. Reed submitted his report separately. I didn't read his, but I assumed it matched mine. We'd both seen the same thing. Commander Vickers called us into his office at 09:30. He had both reports on his desk, printed out, marked up with a red pen. He gestured for us to sit. "I read these twice," he said, "and I'm trying to figure out what to do with them. We reported what we observed, sir, I said. I know you did, and that's the problem. He leaned back in his chair and rubbed his face. If I send this up the chain as written, it's going to raise questions I can't answer, and it's going to make both of you look unreliable. Reed shifted in his seat. With respect, sir, we're not unreliable. We saw what we saw. I believe you. But belief doesn't change how this reads. Hovering sphere. No radar return. Missing time. It sounds like a bad episode of a TV show. We have the GPS log, I said. We have the fuel data. We have the medical report showing elevated temperatures. Something happened out there. Vickers was quiet for a moment. Then he pulled a file folder from his drawer and set it on the desk. You're not the first. Reed and I exchanged a glance. What do you mean? I asked. 3 years ago, a crew out of Marquette reported a similar incident. Different details, but the same core elements. Unidentified light over the water, radar failure, time discrepancy. They filed a report. It got buried in paperwork and never went anywhere. The crew didn't push it. Neither did I. Why not? Reed asked. Because pushing it means dealing with people who don't want to hear it. And it means putting a mark on your record that never goes away. You become the guy who saw something strange. Every evaluation after that gets colored by it. I felt a cold weight settle in my chest. So, what are you telling us to do? I'm telling you that you have a choice. You can let me file this as an equipment malfunction and a navigation error. We'll log it as a training issue and move on. Or you can insist that I send it up the chain exactly as written and deal with whatever comes after. Reed spoke first. That's not fair. We're being asked to lie. You're being asked to be practical, Vickers said. I've been in this service for 26 years. I've seen things I can't explain. So have a lot of other people. The difference is knowing when to make noise and when to stay quiet. I thought about it. I thought about my career, my record, the way people would look at me if this story got out. I thought about Reed and what it would do to his future. And I thought about the sphere hanging above us, pulsing, erasing time like it was nothing. I'm not filing a false report, I said. Vickers nodded slowly. All right. Then I'll send it up as written. But I'm telling you now, don't expect anything to come of it. You'll get a form letter thanking you for your diligence, and that'll be the end of it. That's fine, I said. Reed nodded in agreement. Vickers signed both reports and put them in his outgoing folder. You're both cleared for duty. If you want to take a few days off, I can arrange it. I'm good, I said. Same, Reed added. We left the office and went back to our regular assignments. For the next week, nothing changed. We ran patrols, conducted inspections, trained new crew members. No one mentioned the reports. No one asked questions. It was like the night of November 14th had been absorbed into the routine and forgotten. But I couldn't forget. Every night on the water, I scanned the horizon for yellow light. Every time the radar glitched or the radio crackled, my heart rate spiked. Reed was the same. I'd catch him staring at the instruments, waiting for something to go wrong. On November 22nd, 8 days after the incident, Reed came to me during a maintenance shift. He looked tired. Dark circles under his eyes, hair uncombed, hands fidgeting with a rag. I need to tell you something, he said. We stepped outside into the cold. The sky was overcast, spitting light snow. Reed lit a cigarette, which surprised me because I'd never seen him smoke before. I've been having dreams, he said. Every night since it happened. Same dream, over and over. What kind of dreams? I'm standing on the deck of the Morrow. The sphere is above me. But this time I can see inside it. There are shapes moving around like shadows, but they're not human. They're taller, thinner, and they're doing something, working on something. I can't see what it is, but I know it's important, and I know they see me. They know I'm watching. He took a drag from the cigarette and exhaled slowly. And when I wake up, I have this feeling, like I've been somewhere. Like part of me left my bunk and went somewhere else for a few hours. And when I check the time, it's always later than it should be. Not by much, just 10 or 15 minutes, but it's consistent. I didn't know what to say. I hadn't had dreams like that. But I'd noticed something else. Small gaps in my own sense of time. Moments where I'd be doing one thing, blink, and suddenly be in the middle of another task with no memory of the transition. Nothing dramatic. Just tiny skips that felt wrong. "Have you told anyone else?" I asked. "No, I don't even know if I believe it myself, but it's happening. And it's connected to that night, I know it is. We should document this. Keep a log. Write down the dreams, the time gaps, anything unusual. And then what? Show it to Vickers? He already thinks we're on the edge. We don't show it to anyone. We keep it for ourselves. If this keeps happening, we'll have a record." Reed nodded. "All right, yeah, that makes sense." We went back inside and finished the shift. That night, I started my own log. I wrote down everything I remembered from November 14th. Every detail I could pull from my memory. I wrote about the time skips, the feeling of being watched, the way the water had gone still. I wrote it all in a plain notebook I kept in my locker, and I told myself I was being rational and thorough. But I knew the truth. I was scared. I was scared of what we'd seen and what it meant, and what might still be happening to us. By December, the dreams Reed described started happening to me too. Not every night, but often enough to notice. I'd be on the deck of the Morrow, looking up at the sphere, and I'd feel a pull, like gravity had reversed. I'd rise off the deck, float toward the light, and then I'd be inside. The interior was vast, far larger than the exterior suggested. Curved walls covered in those geometric patterns. Shapes moving through the space, tall and silent. Ignoring me or observing me, I couldn't tell which. I'd wake up in my bunk, drenched in sweat, with the feeling that I'd been gone for hours, even though my watch showed only minutes had passed. I checked in with Reed every few days. He was experiencing the same thing. We compared notes. The details matched. The tall shapes, the interior space, the feeling of being studied. Neither of us had an explanation, and we didn't know who to talk to about it. On December 18th, I got a call from an unknown number. A man's voice, clipped and professional, identified himself as Dr. Carver from the Coast Guard's Medical Research Division. He said he was following up on the medical report from November 14th. "I'd like to ask you a few questions," he said. "All right." "Have you experienced any unusual symptoms since the incident? Headaches, nausea, skin irritation, memory issues?" "Nothing physical, but I've had some disrupted sleep." "Can you describe the disruption?" I hesitated. This felt like a test. "Vivid dreams, occasionally waking up disoriented." "Are the dreams related to the incident?" "Sometimes." "And have you experienced any gaps in time or memory during waking hours?" The question hit me like a fist. Why are you asking that? It's a standard follow-up question for cases involving potential environmental exposure. What kind of exposure? That's what we're trying to determine. Have you experienced time gaps? I thought about lying. I thought about protecting myself and Reed, but I also thought about the fact that someone was finally taking this seriously. Yes, small ones, nothing major. How small? Minutes. Sometimes I'll be in the middle of a task and realize I've lost a few minutes without noticing. And has this happened to your partner, Reed Galway? You'd have to ask him. I will. Thank you for your time, Mr. Halbridge. If you experience any changes, please contact this number immediately. He hung up before I could ask any more questions. I called Reed right away and told him about the conversation. He said he'd received the same call an hour earlier. What do you think it means? He asked. I think someone's been tracking this kind of thing, and I think we're not the only ones it's happened to. That's not comforting. No, but it means we're not crazy. Over the next 2 weeks, I heard nothing from Dr. Carver or anyone else. The dreams continued. The time skips continued. Reed and I kept our logs and tried to stay functional. We didn't talk about it with anyone else. We just worked our shifts and waited. On January 9th, I woke up in my bunk at 0342 hours with the clear, undeniable memory of standing on the deck of a ship I didn't recognize. Not the Morrow. Something larger. Metal walls. Cold air. The smell of ozone. And the sound of a voice, low and resonant, speaking in a language I didn't understand but somehow knew was directed at me. I grabbed my notebook and wrote it down immediately. Date, time, details. I wrote until my hand cramped. When I finished, I realized my nose was bleeding. Just a trickle, but enough to stain the page. I cleaned up, checked the time again. It was 0410. I'd lost 28 minutes. I sat on the edge of my bunk and stared at the notebook. The pages were filling up fast. Reed's were too. We were building a record of something we couldn't name and didn't understand. And the more we documented, the more I realized we were in over our heads. The next morning, I went to Commander Vickers and asked for a transfer. He looked surprised. "You're one of my best," he said. "Why would you want to leave?" "Personal reasons. I need a change of assignment." He studied me. "This is about November 14th. "Partly. Are you experiencing problems?" "No, sir. I just think a change would be good for me." He didn't push. 2 weeks later, my transfer came through. I was reassigned to a station in Duluth on the opposite end of the lake. Reed put in for a transfer too. He ended up in Sault Ste. Marie. We stayed in touch by text. Short messages. "Still happening. Same here. Any word from Carver?" No. The dreams faded over time. The time skips became less frequent. By March, they'd stopped almost entirely. I told myself it was over. Whatever had happened on November 14th was done with us. But I still kept the notebook. I still wrote down anything unusual, and I still scanned the water every night I was on patrol, looking for yellow light. I've been in Duluth for almost a year now. I haven't seen the sphere again. I haven't heard from Dr. Carver. Reed and I don't talk about it anymore. We've both moved on, at least on the surface, but I know it's not over. I know because last week I found a small mark on my left forearm. A perfect circle, pale and smooth, like a scar that's already healed. It wasn't there before, I'm sure of that. I check my arms every day, out of habit. Reed texted me a photo 2 days later. Same mark, same place, same size. We didn't discuss it. We didn't need to. We both know what it means. Something happened to us on November 14th. Something took 2 hours from our lives and left marks we can't explain. And whatever it was, it's not done with us yet. I don't know if I'll ever get answers. I don't know if I want them. But I'm writing this down because someone needs to know. Someone needs to have the record. If you work on Lake Superior and you see a yellow light hovering over the water, turn your boat around. Don't approach. Don't investigate. Don't let it get close. Because once it has you, it doesn't let go. It just waits. And when you think it's over, when you think you've moved on, it reminds you that you haven't. It leaves a mark, and the mark doesn't fade. Reed called me at 0230 hours on March 24th. I was off duty, asleep in my apartment in Duluth, and the phone ringing at that hour sent my pulse through the roof. I fumbled for it in the dark and answered with a dry throat. "Noah, you need to see this." His voice was tight, not panicked, but close. "See what?" "Check your email. I'm sending you something, right now." I sat up, turned on the lamp, and opened my laptop. The email came through while I was logging in. The subject line was blank. The body of the email contained a single sentence: "They came back." Attached was a video file, 18 seconds long. I clicked it. The footage was shaky, shot on a phone in low light. It showed a section of water, dark and calm, with the shoreline barely visible in the background. Then a light appeared. Not gradually, instantly. A yellow sphere, the same size and shape as the one we'd seen on November 14th, hanging about 10 feet above the surface. It pulsed once, twice, 3 times. Each pulse made the phone's camera distort and flicker. Then the sphere moved laterally, fast, and disappeared off the edge of the frame. The video ended. I played it again, and again. My hands shook. I called Reed back. "Where was this?" "Sault Ste. Marie, about 2 miles offshore." I was doing a solo night patrol, standard route, nothing unusual. Then I saw it. Same light, same behavior. I grabbed my phone and recorded what I could before it vanished. "Did you approach?" "No, I turned the boat around and came straight back. I'm not going near that thing again." "Good, that's the right call." "But Noah, there's something else. After it disappeared, I checked my watch. I'd lost 40 minutes. I have no memory of what happened during that time." None. The cold weight in my chest returned. "Are you okay? Any physical symptoms?" "I'm fine. Shaken, but fine. I thought it was over. I thought we were done." "So did I." We stayed on the phone for another hour, going over the details. Reed had been running a standard patrol along the St. Mary's River alone, under clear skies. The sphere had appeared without warning, behaved exactly as it had before, and then vanished. His boat's electronics had glitched during the encounter. Radar went blank. Radio filled with static. GPS showed erratic readings. Everything returned to normal after the sphere left. He hadn't filed a report yet. He wanted to talk to me first. "If I report this, it's going to follow me," he said. "It's going to be on my record twice. They'll start asking questions. They might pull me off active duty. Maybe that's not a bad thing. You think I should report it?" "I think we don't have a choice. If this thing is showing up again, other people need to know. And if it's targeting us specifically, then we need to be on record saying so." Reed was quiet for a moment. "You think it's targeting us? I don't know. But you saw it. I saw it. We both have the marks. And now it's back. That's not a coincidence. What do? We document everything. We stay in contact, and we try to figure out what this thing wants. And if we can't figure it out, then we stay away from the water." Reed filed his report the next morning. I don't know what his commander said or how it was received. He didn't share those details, and I didn't ask. I just knew that we were both back in the same situation we'd been in 4 months earlier, trying to explain the unexplainable to people who didn't want to hear it. 2 days later, Dr. Carver called me again. "Mr. Halbridge, I understand your partner experienced another incident." "That's correct." "And you were not present for this incident?" "No, I'm stationed in Duluth now." "I'm aware. I'd like to schedule a follow-up examination. Are you available this week?" "For what purpose?" "To monitor your condition and ensure there are no ongoing health concerns." "I feel fine." "That may be true, but the mark on your arm suggests otherwise." I froze. "How do you know about the mark?" Mr. Galway mentioned it during his medical evaluation. You both have similar markings, correct? I didn't answer right away. My mind was racing. How much did this man know? How long had he been tracking us? Mr. Halbridge? Yes, we both have markings. I'd like to examine yours. Can you come to the research facility in Ann Arbor? I don't have authorization to travel off station without reason. I'll arrange it. You'll receive orders within 24 hours. He hung up before I could refuse. I stared at the phone, trying to process what had just happened. Someone with enough authority to issue orders was taking an active interest in us. That could be good or bad. I had no way of knowing which. The orders came through the next afternoon. I was to report to a medical research facility in Ann Arbor for a routine health screening. 3 days, all expenses covered. My station commander signed off without question. I packed a bag and drove south. The facility was tucked into a quiet part of the university campus, a plain brick building with no signage and security at the entrance. I showed my ID, signed in, and was escorted to a 4th-floor exam room. Dr. Carver met me there. He was younger than I expected, maybe 40, with short gray hair and the kind of calm demeanor you see in people who've spent years dealing with situations that would unsettle most others. He shook my hand and gestured to a chair. Thank you for coming. I didn't have much choice. Fair enough. Let's get started. I need to examine the mark on your arm. I rolled up my sleeve. The circle was still there, pale and smooth. Dr. Carver leaned in close, took photos with a high-resolution camera, then gently pressed the area with a gloved finger. I felt nothing. No pain. No sensitivity. Just the faint awareness that someone was touching my skin. He used a handheld scanner, something I didn't recognize, and moved it slowly over the mark. The device beeped twice and displayed a readout I couldn't interpret. How long have you had this? He asked. It appeared about 2 months ago. And Mr. Galway's appeared at the same time? Within a day or two, yes. Dr. Carver made notes on a tablet. Have you experienced any changes in health, behavior, or perception since the mark appeared? No. Any recurring dreams or gaps in time? They stopped, or at least became much less frequent. When did they stop? Around the time the mark appeared. He looked up from the tablet. That's consistent with other cases. Other cases? He set the tablet down and folded his hands. Mr. Halbridge, what I'm about to tell you is not public information. You'll be asked to sign a non-disclosure agreement before you leave. Do you understand? Yes. The incident you experienced on November 14th was not unique. Over the past 15 years, there have been 23 documented encounters involving Coast Guard personnel on the Great Lakes. All of them share similar characteristics: unidentified aerial phenomena, radar anomalies, time loss, and in most cases marks appearing on the skin weeks or months after the encounter. I felt the room tilt slightly. 23. That we know of. There may be more that were never reported or were dismissed as equipment failure. What are they? We don't know. We've examined the marks. They're not burns, not scars, not tattoos. The tissue is normal on a cellular level, but the pigmentation change is unexplained, and the pattern is always the same. A perfect circle, smooth edges, appearing in the same location on the body. And the time loss? Also consistent. Anywhere from 30 minutes to 3 hours. No memory of the missing time. No physical evidence of what occurred during that period. So, what are you telling me? That we were abducted? Dr. Carver's expression didn't change. I'm telling you that something happened to you. What that something is, we don't know. But you're not alone, and you're not imagining it. I sat back in the chair, trying to absorb what he was saying. 23 cases. Other people who'd seen the lights, lost time, woke up with marks. We weren't outliers. We were part of a pattern. What happens now? I asked. You continue your duties. We continue to monitor. If you experience another encounter, you report it immediately, and you keep documenting everything in your personal log. You know about the logs. Mr. Galway mentioned them. It's a smart practice. Keep doing it. And if we want out, if we don't want to be part of this anymore, Dr. Carver met my eyes. Then you walk away from the Coast Guard and hope they don't follow you. But based on what we've seen, distance doesn't seem to matter. The individuals who've had encounters tend to have them again, regardless of location or assignment. It's as if they've been marked for observation. The word hung in the air between us. Marked, like cattle, like test subjects. Can you stop it? I asked. No. We don't know how. I left the facility the next day with a signed NDA and a folder full of information I wasn't allowed to share with anyone. The drive back to Duluth felt longer than it should have. I kept checking my rearview mirror, half expecting to see a yellow light following me. Reed and I met in person 2 weeks later. We chose a quiet diner in Marquette, halfway between our stations. We sat in a corner booth and compared notes. He'd been through the same examination, received the same information, signed the same paperwork. So, we're part of a study, Reed said. And we didn't volunteer. Looks that way. And there's nothing we can do about it. Not unless we quit, and even then, it might not stop. Reed stirred his coffee without drinking it. I've been thinking about quitting. I love this job. But I don't love waking up in the middle of the night wondering if I'm going to lose another chunk of time. I don't love looking at this mark and knowing I didn't put it there. I get it. Do you? Because you seem pretty calm about this. I wasn't calm. I was just better at hiding it. The truth was, I hadn't slept more than 4 hours a night since the mark appeared. I jumped at shadows. I avoided the water when I wasn't on duty. I checked my watch constantly to make sure time was moving the way it should. I'm not calm, I said. I'm just trying to keep it together. Reed nodded. Yeah, same. We finished our coffee and went our separate ways. I didn't see him again for months. We texted occasionally, brief updates, nothing substantial. He didn't report any new encounters. Neither did I. But the dreams came back. Not every night, but enough. I'd be on the deck of the Morrow, looking up at the sphere, feeling the pull. And this time, when I floated toward it, I'd see faces. Not human faces. Shapes that suggested features without being clear. Eyes that watched. Mouths that didn't move but communicated something I couldn't translate. I'd wake up with the feeling that I'd been told something important. Something I needed to remember, but the memory would slip away before I could hold it. In July, I took a week of leave and drove out to the Upper Peninsula. I wanted to see the place where it had happened. The coordinates were burned into my memory. I rented a small boat in Whitefish Point and motored out to the spot where the sphere had appeared. It was late afternoon, the water calm, the sky clear. I cut the engine and drifted. I didn't know what I was looking for. A sign. An answer. Closure. I sat there for an hour, watching the water, listening to the wind. Nothing happened. The lake was just a lake. The sky was just a sky. I felt foolish and relieved at the same time. I started the engine and turned back toward shore. As I did, I glanced at my watch. It was 1847 hours. I'd been out there for over 3 hours, not 1. I'd lost 2 hours without noticing. I checked the fuel gauge. It matched the time. I checked my phone. Same time. I looked back at the water, my pulse hammering in my chest. The sphere hadn't appeared. But something had happened. Something I couldn't remember, again. I didn't tell anyone, not Reed, not Dr. Carver. I just wrote it in my log and tried to move on, but I couldn't. Because I knew, deep in my gut, that this wasn't over. It would never be over. We'd been marked. We'd been chosen for something we didn't understand. And no matter how far we ran, or how much we tried to forget, it would find us again. That's where I am now. Waiting. Watching. Carrying a notebook full of entries that document a pattern I can't break. If you're reading this and you work on the Great Lakes and you see a yellow light hanging above the water, don't approach. Don't investigate. Don't let curiosity pull you in, because once it sees you, it doesn't forget, it marks you, and it comes back. I don't know what it wants. I don't know what it's studying, but I know it's not done. Not with me, not with Reed, not with any of us who've seen it. And when it comes back, I'll be ready. Not to fight it, not to understand it, just to survive it one more time. That's all any of us can do. My name is Jenna Morgan, and I've been with the United States Coast Guard for 9 years. I work out of the Harbor Beach Station on the Michigan side of Lake Huron. Most of my shifts are routine. Equipment checks, safety inspections, search and rescue drills, the occasional tow for a boater who ran out of fuel or hit something they shouldn't have. I've pulled bodies from the water. I've talked down people who wanted to jump. I've seen storms that turned the lake into something that looked like the ocean. But nothing in my training or experience prepared me for what happened on the night of October 8th. I need to write this down because the official report doesn't tell the full story. It can't. The facts on paper don't capture what it felt like to watch time break apart in front of me. They don't explain why my watch showed a different time than every other clock on the boat. And they don't account for the 3 minutes that simply didn't exist in the radar log. My partner that night was Silas Monroe. He's 42, been in the service for 18 years, and he's the kind of person who notices details other people miss. He can tell you the pitch of an engine from 50 yards away just by the sound. He can read water temperature by looking at the surface texture. When equipment fails, he's usually the first one to catch it. That attention to detail is what made what happened to us even harder to dismiss. We launched at 2100 hours in a 29-foot response boat small. The RBS is fast, maneuverable, and built for near-shore work. Silas took the helm. I handled navigation and communications. The night was cold for early October. Temperature around 42 degrees, winds light from the northwest. Visibility was good, maybe 3 miles, with scattered clouds and no moon. The water was calm, 2-foot swells, nothing worth mentioning. Our patrol route covered the area between Harbor Beach and Port Sanilac, roughly 20 miles of coastline. We were looking for anything unusual. Disabled vessels, debris, migrating birds caught in fishing nets, the standard sweep. The radio was quiet. Most of the recreational boats had been pulled for the season. The commercial traffic was farther out, beyond our patrol zone. At 2145 hours, we were about 6 miles offshore, running parallel to the coast, when the radio crackled to life. Station Harbor Beach to RBS-14, we have a distress call from a private vessel. Single occupant, engine failure, requesting assistance. Position is approximately 7 miles northeast of your current location. Vessel name is Second Wind. I picked up the handset. RBS-14 copies. Moving to assist, ETA 15 minutes. Copy that. Vessel operator is Gregory Hale. He's 68, experienced boater, sounds calm. No medical emergency reported. Understood. Silas adjusted our heading and opened the throttle. The RBS jumped forward and the bow lifted as we climbed onto plane. The wind hit harder at speed. I zipped my jacket to the collar and pulled my watch cap down over my ears. The water rushed past in dark streaks. The lights of the coastline slid away behind us. "You ever pulled hail before?" Silas asked. "Name sounds familiar. I think he got towed in last summer. Fuel line issue." "Hope it's something simple." "It usually is." At 7 miles out, I started scanning for lights. A disabled boat should have been visible by now, either running lights or a flashlight. I didn't see anything. I checked the GPS coordinates against the position we'd been given. We were close, within half a mile. "Silas, slow down. We should be on top of him." He throttled back and the boat settled into the water. The engine noise dropped to a low rumble. I grabbed the spotlight and swept it across the water. Nothing. Just black swells rolling past. "Station, this is RBS 14. We're at the coordinates, no visual on second wind. Can you confirm position?" There was a pause. Then the dispatcher's voice came back. "Stand by, 14. We drifted. The water lapped against the hull. I kept the spotlight moving, checking every direction. Still nothing. "RBS 14. We're showing the vessel's last known position as the coordinates we provided. Gregory Hale has not responded to our follow-up calls." "Copy that. We'll expand the search area." Silas started a slow circle, widening our radius. I kept the spotlight on and scanned methodically. 5 minutes passed. 10. No sign of the boat. No debris. No lights. No sound except the wind and the water. Then I saw it. Not the boat. A light, high above the water, maybe 200 feet up, hovering in place. It wasn't a star, it wasn't a plane. It was a pale blue light, steady and bright, shaped like an elongated teardrop. It hung there without moving, pointed end down, wider end up. "Silas, you see that?" He looked where I was pointing. "Yeah, what is it?" "I don't know." We both stared. The light didn't flicker. It didn't drift, it just existed, perfectly still, casting no reflection on the water beneath it. That struck me as wrong immediately. A light that bright should have lit up the surface, but the lake below it stayed dark. "Could be a flare," Silas said. "Flares fall. That's not moving." "Helicopter?" "I don't hear rotors." We listened. The wind carried sound well over the water. If there was a helicopter within a mile, we'd hear it. There was nothing. I raised the radio. "Station, RBS 14. We have an unidentified light source approximately 200 feet above the water. No audible engine noise, no visible aircraft, requesting guidance." The radio hissed. Static rolled through the channel, thick and uneven. I adjusted the squelch. The static didn't change. "Station, do you copy?" More static. Silas tried his handheld. Same result. White noise, no signal. "Communications are down," he said quietly. I felt a prickle of unease run down my spine. Communications don't just fail for no reason. The radios on the RBS are tested before every shift. We'd used them 20 minutes ago without issue. I looked back at the light. It was closer. Not by much, maybe 50 feet. But it had moved without me seeing the transition. 1 second it was in one spot. The next second it was in another. "Did you see it move?" I asked. "No, but it's definitely closer." The light pulsed once, a soft throb, like a heartbeat, then back to steady. I felt the pulse in my chest, a low vibration that made my sternum hum. Silas felt it too. I saw him press his hand against his ribs. "What the hell is that?" he said. "I don't know, but I don't like it. We should back off." Agreed. Silas turned the wheel and pushed the throttle forward. The engine roared, the bow lifted, and we started to move. But the light moved with us. It didn't follow from behind. It appeared directly ahead, cutting off our path. same distance, same height, as if it had anticipated our direction and repositioned itself before we'd even started moving. Silas killed the throttle. The boat settled back into the water. We sat there, engine idling, staring at the light. "This doesn't make sense," Silas said. His voice was tight. "No, it doesn't." The light pulsed again, stronger this time. The vibration climbed through the deck, through my boots, into my bones. My teeth ached. My vision blurred for half a second. When it cleared, the light was gone, not faded, not moved. Gone. The sky was empty. The water was dark. The only sound was the engine and the wind. I looked at Silas. His face was pale in the glow of the instrument panel. "Where did it go?" I asked. "I don't know." I checked the radar. The screen was functioning normally, no contacts within 5 miles. I checked the GPS. Our position was accurate. I checked my watch. It read 22:14 hours. Something about that felt wrong. I looked at the boat's chronometer. It read 22:11 hours. "Silas, what time do you have?" He glanced at his watch. 22:11. I showed him mine. "I have 22:4." He frowned. "Your watch is off." It was synced this morning, same as the chronometer. Then it drifted. 3 minutes and 6 hours? That's not drift, that's failure. He didn't argue. He just stared at my watch like it had personally offended him. I tried the radio again. This time it worked. The static was gone. The channel was clear. "Station Harbor Beach. This is RBS 14. Do you copy?" "We copy 14. What's your status?" "We lost your signal for a few minutes." "How long were we off the air?" "Approximately 3 minutes." I looked at Silas. His jaw tightened. "We're operational," I said into the radio. "Resuming search for second wind." "Copy that." I set the handset down and took a slow breath. 3 minutes. My watch had gained 3 minutes. The radio had been out for 3 minutes. And I had no memory of what had happened during those 3 minutes. None. "Did we black out?" I asked. "I don't think so. I remember looking at the light. I remember it pulsing. I remember it disappearing. There's no gap. But there is a gap. 3 minutes. The station lost our signal. My watch jumped ahead. Something happened during that time. Or nothing happened. Or time just skipped." The words hung in the cold air. Time just skipped. It sounded absurd, but I didn't have a better explanation. "We need to find Hale," Silas said. "Then we'll deal with this." He was right. There was a man out here somewhere with a disabled boat. That took priority. I pushed the light and the missing minutes to the back of my mind and focused on the search. We expanded our pattern, running a grid that covered 2 square miles. I kept the spotlight on and scanned constantly. Silas watched the radar. 20 minutes passed. 30, still no sign of second wind. Then the radar beeped. A contact, small signature, stationary, roughly 1 mile to the east. "Got something," Silas said. We turned toward the contact and increased speed. Within 5 minutes, I saw it. A small fishing boat, maybe 22 feet, drifting without lights. No one on deck, no movement. We pulled alongside and Silas cut the engine. I grabbed the rail and called out. "Second wind, this is the Coast Guard. Gregory Hale, are you aboard?" No response. I called again. Still nothing. Silas grabbed a line and secured our boat to the fishing boat's cleat. I stepped across onto the deck. It was slick with condensation. The boat rocked gently in the swell. I moved toward the small cabin and looked inside. Gregory Hale sat in the pilot's seat, slumped forward with his head resting on the console. For a moment, I thought he was dead. Then I saw his chest rise and fall. He was breathing. "Mr. Hale?" I touched his shoulder. He jerked upright, eyes wide, and stared at me like I'd appeared out of thin air. "What? Where? You're okay. You're safe. I'm with the Coast Guard. You called for assistance." He blinked several times, trying to focus. His face was pale, and his hands were shaking. "I called?" "Yes, sir. About 30 minutes ago. You reported engine failure." He looked around the cabin as if he didn't recognize it. "I don't remember calling." "Do you remember your engine failing?" He paused, rubbing his face. "I was running north, heading back to port. Then I saw light, a blue light. It was above me. And then, I don't know, I woke up just now." My stomach tightened. "What did the light look like?" "Like a teardrop, bright. It didn't move, just hung there." He looked at me, his eyes searching mine. "You think I'm crazy?" "No, sir, I don't." Silas appeared in the doorway. "Is he all right?" "He's disoriented. Says he saw a blue light before he blacked out." Silas and I exchanged a look. Neither of us said anything. We didn't need to. I checked Hale's pupils. They were equal and reactive. His pulse was elevated but steady. No signs of stroke or cardiac distress. Just confusion and fear. "Mr. Hale, we're going to tow you back to Harbor Beach, but first I need to check your engine." He nodded weakly. I moved to the stern and opened the engine compartment. The motor looked fine. No obvious damage, no leaks, no loose connections. I tried the ignition. The engine turned over immediately and started without hesitation. "Your engine's working," I called forward. Hale stared at me. "That's not possible. It was dead. I tried 3 times. It wouldn't even turn over." "It's working now." I shut it down and returned to the cabin. Hale looked like a man who'd been told the sky was green. Lost, uncertain, afraid to trust his own memory. "We'll escort you back," I said. "Can you handle the helm?" "I think so." "Good. Stay on our stern. If you have any problems, signal with your spotlight." He nodded. I stepped back onto the RBS and Silas untied the line. We pulled away and let Hale restart his engine. It fired up clean. He maneuvered into position behind us, and we began the slow return to Harbor Beach. The trip back was quiet. No more lights, no more radio failures. The lake behaved the way it was supposed to. But I couldn't shake the feeling that something was watching us. Not from the shore, not from another boat. From above. From the empty sky that didn't feel empty anymore. We reached the harbor at 00:15 hours. Hale docked his boat and stepped onto the pier. He looked steadier now, more grounded. We helped him secure his lines and walked him to the station building. Inside, under the harsh fluorescent lights, he seemed embarrassed. "I don't know what happened out there. I've been boating for 40 years. I know when an engine's dead, and I know when I'm losing time." "Losing time?" Silas asked. I looked at my watch when the light appeared. It was 22:03. When I woke up, my watch said 22:11, but it felt like seconds, like I blinked and jumped forward. I pulled my sleeve back and showed him my watch. I gained 3 minutes, too. His eyes widened. "You saw the light?" "Yes. And you lost time. We're not sure what happened, but something did." He sat down heavily in a chair. "I thought I was having a stroke or going crazy." "You're not," I said. "We experienced the same thing, and we're going to report it." Hale looked relieved. Not happy, just relieved that he wasn't alone. We filed our incident reports separately. Silas and I wrote ours in the station office while Hale waited in the break room. I kept mine factual. Time of departure, coordinates of distress call, description of the light, radio failure, time discrepancy recovery of Gregory Hale, I didn't speculate. I didn't add interpretation. I just documented what I'd observed. Silas turned in his report first and stepped outside to make a phone call. I finished mine and submitted it to the night supervisor, Lieutenant Marsh. He read it twice without speaking, then looked at me over the top of the page. "You're telling me you saw an unidentified light and lost 3 minutes?" "Yes, sir." "And your watch gained time while the boat's chronometer stayed accurate?" "Correct." "And the civilian saw the same light and blacked out?" "He reported the same thing, yes." Marsh set the report down and leaned back in his chair. "I'm going to be honest with you, Morgan. This is going to raise questions. I understand. Questions you might not be able to answer. I know." He sighed. "All right, I'll send it up the chain. But don't be surprised if someone calls you in for a follow-up." "I won't be." I left the office and found Silas sitting on a bench outside, staring at his phone. He looked up when I approached. "I pulled the radar log," he said. "And there's a gap. From 22:08 to 22:11. 3 minutes. The system shows no data recorded during that time. Not corrupted data, not missing data. Just nothing. Like those 3 minutes never happened." I sat down beside him. The cold seeped through my pants from the bench. "That's not a malfunction." "No, it's not. A malfunction would show errors or blank frames. This is clean. The timestamps jump from 22:08 to 22:11 with nothing in between." "Did you tell Marsh?" "Not yet. I wanted to talk to you first." "We should tell him." "And say what? That time stopped for 3 minutes and the radar didn't record it because those minutes didn't exist?" "That's what the data shows." Silas rubbed his face. "I've been doing this for 18 years. I've seen equipment fail in every way you can imagine. I've never seen anything like this. Neither have I." We sat in silence for a while. The wind blew cold off the lake. The station lights hummed overhead. Somewhere in the building, a radio squawked. Normal sounds, normal night, except nothing about tonight had been normal. "Do you think it was a drone?" Silas asked. "No." "Why not?" "Drones make noise. They have visible components. Rotors, lights, structure. What we saw didn't have any of that, and drones don't make time skip." "Then what was it?" I didn't answer. I didn't have an answer. I just knew that something had been out there. Something that didn't follow the rules I understood. And it had taken 3 minutes from us like it was nothing. Gregory Hale left the station around 130 hours. He shook both our hands and thanked us for not treating him like he was insane. He said he'd been afraid to tell anyone what he saw because he thought they'd pull his boating license or send him for a psychiatric evaluation. "You're not crazy," I told him, "and you're not alone." He nodded, but I could see the fear still sitting behind his eyes. He got in his truck and drove away. I watched his taillights disappear down the road and wondered if he'd ever go back out on the water. Silas and I clocked out at 0200 hours. We walked to the parking lot together. He stopped beside his truck and turned to me. "You ever heard of anything like this before?" he asked. "No." "Me neither. And I've heard a lot of stories. Guys who've been out here for decades. Strange lights, weird radar contacts, equipment failures. But nobody ever mentioned time just stopping. Maybe they didn't notice. Or maybe they didn't report it." That thought sat heavy in my chest. How many other people had seen something like this and stayed quiet? How many incidents had been written off as equipment malfunction or human error because the truth was too strange to put in an official report? "Get some sleep," Silas said. "We'll figure this out tomorrow." "Yeah, sleep." But I didn't sleep. I went home, sat at my kitchen table and stared at my watch. The second hand ticked forward at its normal pace, steady, predictable, exactly as it should be. But I couldn't stop thinking about those 3 minutes. Where did they go? Did they exist somewhere I couldn't see? Or were they just gone, erased like they'd never happened? I opened my laptop and started a document. I wrote down everything I could remember. The light, the pulse, the vibration, the way the light moved without moving, the radio failure, the time discrepancy, Gregory Hale's story, the gap in the radar log. I wrote for 2 hours. When I finished, I saved the file and backed it up to a flash drive. If someone asked me to change my report, I'd have a record. If someone tried to dismiss what happened, I'd have the details locked down. I didn't know if it would matter, but it was all I could do. I reported for my next shift 2 days later. The station felt the same. Same people, same routines, same smell of coffee and diesel fuel. But something had changed in the way people looked at me. Not overtly, just quick glances. Conversations that stopped when I walked into a room. The kind of attention you get when you've become a topic of discussion. Lieutenant Marsh called me into his office before the shift briefing. He gestured to a chair and closed the door. "Your report has been reviewed," he said. And you're going to receive a call from someone in the Medical Research Division. They want to ask you some follow-up questions. About what? About your health? About any symptoms you might have experienced. Standard procedure for unusual incidents. I didn't believe that for a second. There was nothing standard about this. When? Probably within the next few days. Just be honest with them. Answer their questions. Don't speculate. I didn't speculate in my report. I know. Keep it that way. He dismissed me and I went to the briefing room. Silas was already there, sitting in the back row with his arms crossed. He gave me a small nod. I sat beside him and waited for the briefing to start. The shift commander went through the usual items: weather forecast, patrol zones, equipment maintenance, safety reminders. Then he added something new. As of today, all night patrols in the offshore zone will be conducted with a minimum of 2 vessels. No solo runs. If you see anything unusual, any lights, any contacts that don't make sense, you report immediately and maintain distance. Do not approach. Do not investigate on your own. Understood. A few people murmured acknowledgement. Most just nodded. I caught Silas's eye. He raised an eyebrow. The new protocol wasn't random. Someone higher up the chain had read our report and decided to change how we operated. After the briefing, I found the shift commander in the hallway. "Sir, can I ask about the new protocol?" He looked at me for a long moment. "It's precautionary, that's all I can say." Precautionary against what? Against crew safety being compromised by unknown factors. You did the right thing reporting what you saw, Morgan. Now let the people above us handle it. He walked away before I could ask anything else. Silas and I were assigned to daytime coastal patrol. No offshore work, no night shifts. The assignment felt deliberate, like someone wanted to keep us close to shore and away from whatever was out there in the dark. We launched at Lero 800 hours in the same RBS we'd used 2 nights earlier. The water was calm. The sky was overcast. We ran a standard route along the beach, checking for hazards, marking debris, logging boat traffic. Normal work, easy work. But I couldn't shake the feeling that I was being kept busy to avoid thinking about what had happened. Around noon, Silas pulled into a quiet cove and killed the engine. We drifted in the shallows while he poured coffee from a thermos. "You hear from the medical people yet?" he asked. "Not yet, you?" "Got a call this morning. They want me to come in for an evaluation." "When?" "Friday. Some facility downstate. All expenses covered. They were very polite about it." "Same here. Marsh said they'd be calling." Silas sipped his coffee and stared at the water. I've been thinking about that radar log. Yeah? The gap bothers me, not because it's there, but because of how clean it is. I've been looking at radar data for years. When something fails, it fails messy. Corrupt files, scrambled timestamps, frozen frames. This wasn't like that. The system just stopped recording for 3 minutes and then started again like nothing happened. What are you saying? I'm saying it might not have been a system failure. It might have been something else. Something that prevented the radar from seeing those minutes. That doesn't make sense. None of this makes sense. But if we accept that time skipped, then we have to accept that the radar couldn't record what didn't exist. At least not from our perspective. I let that sit for a moment. The idea felt too big, too strange to fit inside my head. But it also felt true. You think time actually stopped? I don't know. But I know we both felt that pulse. And I know Gregory Hale blacked out. And I know the data supports something happening that we can't explain with normal equipment failure. Have you told anyone else about the radar log? No, and I'm not going to. Not unless someone asks directly. Why not? Because I don't want to be the guy who sounds crazy. I already filed one report that makes me look unreliable. I'm not filing another one. I understood that. I felt the same way. But staying quiet didn't feel right either. If something was happening out here, other people needed to know. Other crews needed to be prepared. What if it happens again? I asked. Then we'll deal with it, and we'll have more data. But until then, I'm keeping my head down. We finished the patrol without incident and returned to the station by 1600 hours. I clocked out, went home, and tried to relax. But my mind kept circling back to the light, the pulse, the 3 missing minutes. I couldn't stop thinking about Gregory Hale's face when he woke up in his boat. The confusion, the fear. He'd lost time and didn't know where it went. That feeling was familiar now. I'd felt it too. The call from the Medical Research Division came the next afternoon. A woman named Dr. Brennan introduced herself and asked if I'd be willing to participate in a follow-up health evaluation. She was polite, professional, and careful not to make it sound mandatory. But I knew it was. If I refused, it would go in my file. And that would raise more questions than answering would. "When do you need me?" I asked. "Is Friday feasible for you?" "Yes." "Excellent. I'll send you the details by email. The evaluation will take approximately 2 hours. It's non-invasive. Just some basic tests and a few questions." "What kind of tests?" "Cognitive function, memory, coordination, and a standard physical, nothing to be concerned about." She hung up before I could ask anything else. I checked my email an hour later and found the address. A medical facility in Ann Arbor. Same place Silas was going, same day. I called him. "Did Brennan contact you?" "Yeah, Friday, right?" "Same time?" "Probably. Think they're going to run us together." "Maybe. Or maybe they're comparing notes. Either way, we'll find out soon enough." Friday came. I drove to Ann Arbor and arrived at the facility just after 0900 hours. It was a plain, brick building tucked into a quiet corner of the university campus. No signage, just a street number and a secure entrance. I showed my ID and was escorted to the 3rd floor. Silas was already in the waiting area. He looked tired but calm. We sat together in silence until a woman in a white coat appeared and called my name. Dr. Brennan was younger than I expected. Maybe 35, with short dark hair and sharp eyes that seemed to catalog everything. She led me to an exam room and gestured to a chair. "Thank you for coming, Miss Morgan. I know this is an inconvenience. It's fine. I've reviewed your incident report. I'd like to ask you a few questions about what you experienced. But first, I need to conduct a baseline health assessment. Is that all right?" "Yes." She ran through the standard checks. blood pressure, heart rate, pupil response, reflex tests. Everything came back normal. Then she handed me a tablet with a cognitive assessment. Pattern recognition, memory recall, spatial reasoning. I completed it in 15 minutes. She reviewed the results and nodded. Your cognitive function is well within normal range. No deficits noted. Good to know. Now, I'd like to ask about the night of October 8th. You reported seeing an unidentified light. Can you describe it in detail? I described the teardrop shape, the blue color, the way it hovered without moving. I told her about the pulse, the vibration, the way the light relocated itself without transition. I mentioned the radio failure and the time discrepancy. She took notes on a tablet without interrupting. When I finished, she looked up. Did you experience any physical sensations during the encounter? Nausea, dizziness, disorientation? No, just the vibration in my chest when the light pulsed. And after the encounter, any lingering symptoms? No. Have you had any unusual dreams or sleep disturbances since the incident? I hesitated. I had been having strange dreams, nothing I could clearly remember, just fragments, images of lights, the feeling of being watched, the sensation of time stretching like fabric. Some, I admitted, nothing severe. Can you describe them? They're not coherent, just flashes. I don't remember much when I wake up. She made a note. Have you noticed any changes in your perception of time? Feeling like minutes pass faster or slower than they should? No. Are you certain? Yes. She studied me for a moment, then set the tablet aside. Miss Morgan, what I'm about to tell you is not public information. You'll be asked to sign a non-disclosure agreement before you leave. Do you understand? I understand. The incident you experienced is not unique. Over the past 12 years, there have been 17 documented cases involving Coast Guard personnel on the Great Lakes. All of them share similar characteristics: unidentified lights, equipment malfunctions, time discrepancies, and in most cases gaps in memory or data logs. My pulse quickened. 17? That we know of. There may be others that were never reported or were dismissed as equipment failure. What are they? We don't know, but we're trying to understand the pattern. The lights appear most frequently in October and November. They're always observed over water, and they consistently cause temporal anomalies. Temporal anomalies. Disruptions in the flow of time, skips, gaps, inconsistencies between timepieces and data logs. We've documented cases where watches gained or lost time, where radar systems stopped recording, and where crew members lost minutes or even hours with no memory of what occurred. I felt cold. What causes it? We don't know. We've examined the equipment. We've interviewed the personnel. We've analyzed the environmental conditions. Nothing provides a clear answer. The only consistent factor is the lights themselves. Are they dangerous? We don't have evidence of physical harm, but the psychological impact can be significant. Confusion, fear, disrupted sleep. Some personnel have requested transfers after their encounters. What do you want from me? I want you to continue documenting. If you experience another encounter, record everything. Time, location, physical sensations, equipment behavior, and report it immediately. And if I don't want to encounter it again, then stay off the water during peak activity months. But I suspect you're not the type to do that. She was right, I wasn't. I'd been on the lake for 9 years. I wasn't going to let one strange night drive me away. Dr. Brennan stood and extended her hand. Thank you for your cooperation. If you have any questions or concerns, you can reach me at this number. She handed me a business card. I slipped it into my pocket and left the room. Silas was waiting in the hallway. We walked to the parking lot together without speaking. Once we were outside, he turned to me. "She tell you about the other cases?" "Yeah, 17. 18 now. Ours makes it 18. "You think they know what's causing it?" "If they do, they're not saying. But I think they're worried. Otherwise, they wouldn't be running all these evaluations." We stood by our vehicles for a moment, neither of us wanting to leave. Finally, Silas broke the silence. "You going back out there?" "Yeah, you?" "Yeah, but I'm going to be watching the sky a lot more closely." "Same." I drove back to Harbor Beach and tried to process everything Dr. Brennan had told me. 17 other cases, temporal anomalies, a pattern that no one could explain. The more I learned, the less sense it made. That night, I pulled out the document I'd started after the incident and added everything I remembered from the evaluation. Dr. Brennan's questions, the details about the other cases, the mention of October and November as peak months. I saved it, backed it up, and then sat staring at the screen. If there were 17 other cases, there were 17 other people who'd experienced what I had. People who'd lost time, seen lights, felt that vibration in their chests. People who were probably still trying to make sense of it. I wondered if any of them had found answers, or if they were all just carrying it around like I was, trying to fit something impossible into a framework that didn't have room for it. Over the next 2 weeks, I ran regular patrols. Day shifts, coastal routes, nothing unusual. The weather turned colder. The lake grew rougher. The recreational boats disappeared entirely. By late October, we were mostly alone out there except for the occasional commercial vessel passing through. Silas and I didn't talk much about the incident. We didn't need to. It sat between us like a third crew member, always present but never acknowledged. Then, on October 27th, it happened again. We were running a night patrol, not by choice. We'd been assigned to cover for a crew member who'd called in sick. The patrol zone was the same area where we'd encountered the light 3 weeks earlier. I felt uneasy the moment we left the harbor, but I didn't say anything. Silas felt it too. I could see it in the way he gripped the wheel a little tighter than usual. The night was overcast, no moon, no stars, just low clouds and cold wind. The water was rough, 4-foot swells rolling in from the northwest. The boat handled them fine, but the ride was uncomfortable. We were 6 miles offshore when the radar started acting up. "Contact," Silas said. "Bearing 090, 2 miles. I checked the screen. A small return, stationary. But the signature was flickering, on, off, like something was interfering with the signal. "Could be a buoy," I said. "Could be." We adjusted course and headed toward the contact. As we got closer, the return stabilized. Solid signature, not moving. We slowed as we approached 1 mile. That's when I saw it. The same blue light, teardrop shape, hovering 200 feet above the water, perfectly still, perfectly silent. "Silas, I see it." He cut the throttle. The boat settled into the swells. We both stared at the light. My heart hammered against my ribs. "Do we approach?" I asked. "No. We report and maintain distance." I picked up the radio. "Station Harbor Beach, RBS 14. We have visual contact with an unidentified light source. Same description as previous report. Requesting guidance." The radio crackled. Static filled the channel. I tried again, more static. "Communications are down," I said. Silas didn't respond. He was staring at the light. It pulsed once. The vibration rolled through the boat, stronger than before. My vision blurred. I grabbed the rail to steady myself. The light moved, not toward us, up. It climbed slowly, rising higher into the sky until it was just a pinpoint against the clouds. Then it was gone. I checked my watch. It read 2143 hours. I looked at the chronometer. It read 2139 hours. 4 minutes, I said. Silas checked his watch. Same, I lost 4 minutes. I tried the radio again. It worked. Station, RBS 14. Contact lost. Returning to base. Copy that, 14. We turned back toward Harbor Beach without another word. The trip felt longer than it should have. My hands were shaking. My chest felt tight. When we finally reached the harbor, I stepped onto the dock and stood there for a moment, just breathing. Silas secured the boat and joined me. That was the same thing. I know. And we lost more time this time. I know. What do? We reported, and we called Dr. Brennan. We filed our reports that night. Lieutenant Marsh read them with a grim expression and didn't say anything except, "I'll send these up." I called Dr. Brennan from my car. She answered on the second ring. "Ms. Morgan, what happened?" I told her everything. The light, the pulse, the time loss. She listened without interrupting. "Are you experiencing any symptoms?" she asked. "No, just shaken. I want you to come in for another evaluation, as soon as possible." "When?" "Tomorrow, if you can." "I'll be there." I drove to Ann Arbor the next morning. Dr. Brennan ran the same tests as before. Everything came back normal. But when she asked about my watch, I showed her the discrepancy. She photographed it, logged the data, and sat back in her chair. "You're the first person to experience a second encounter this close to the first," she said. "What does that mean?" "I don't know, but it suggests a pattern, or a focus." "You think it's targeting us?" "I think something is observing you, and I think it's accelerating." "Accelerating how?" "The time loss increased. From 3 minutes to 4. The interval between encounters decreased. From 3 weeks to 19 days. If the pattern continues, you may experience another encounter sooner than that." "Can you stop it?" "No, we don't know how." I sat there trying to absorb what she was telling me. Something was watching us, something was taking time from us, and it was getting closer. "What should I do?" I asked. "Stay vigilant, document everything, and if it happens again, try to stay calm. Panic won't help." I left the facility feeling more afraid than I had before. Not of the light itself, but of what it meant. If it kept happening, if the intervals kept shrinking, where did it end? How much time could it take before it took something we couldn't get back? November came. The lake turned hostile. Ice formed along the shoreline. The wind cut through layers of clothing like they weren't there. Most days we stayed close to the harbor, running short patrols and returning before the weather got worse. Silas and I didn't talk about the light. We didn't need to. It was always there, sitting in the back of our minds, waiting. I started checking my watch compulsively. Every few minutes I'd glance down to make sure time was moving the way it should. Silas did the same. I'd catch him staring at the chronometer, counting seconds, making sure they matched his internal sense of duration. On November 12th, 15 days after the second encounter, we were assigned another night patrol. I felt sick when I saw the roster. Silas looked at me across the briefing room and I could see the same dread in his eyes. We didn't refuse. We couldn't. Refusing would mean admitting we were afraid. And fear wasn't something you could put in a report without sounding unreliable. We launched at 2,000 hours under a clear sky. The temperature was 28 degrees. The water was calmer than it had been in weeks. Flat swells, no whitecaps. The kind of night that should have been easy. We ran our route in silence. Every few minutes, I scanned the sky. Nothing. Just stars and darkness. The radio stayed clear. The radar showed normal traffic. By 2200 hours, I started to relax. Maybe tonight would be different. Maybe the pattern had broken. At 2217 hours, the radar contact appeared. Same bearing as before, same stationary signature, same flickering return. "It's back," Silas said quietly. I felt my stomach drop. "How far?" 3 miles, bearing 105. "Do we approach?" "No. We call it in and maintain distance." I picked up the radio. Before I could speak, the static rolled through. Thick, harsh, unbroken. I switched channels, same result. I tried the handheld. White noise. "Communications are down," I said. Silas didn't respond. He was staring at the horizon. I followed his gaze and saw it. The blue light. Teardrop shape. But this time it wasn't alone. There were 3 of them, arranged in a triangle. All perfectly still. All perfectly silent. "There's more than one," I said. "I see them." The lights pulsed in unison. The vibration hit like a physical wave. The boat rocked even though the water was flat. My vision blurred. My ears rang. I grabbed the rail and held on. The lights moved, not up this time, toward us. They closed the distance in seconds. No transition, no motion. They were 3 miles away, then they were directly above us. I looked up. The 3 lights formed a perfect triangle, each one positioned at a point. They hovered maybe 50 feet above the boat, casting that cold blue glow across the deck. But the water beneath us stayed dark. The light didn't reflect. It didn't penetrate. It just existed in the space above us. "Silas, we need to move." He didn't respond. He was staring up at the lights, transfixed. His hands were on the wheel, but he wasn't moving. "Silas!" He blinked and looked at me. His face was pale. "I can't move." "What?" "I can't move my hands. They're frozen." I tried to move my own arm. It responded, but slowly, like I was pushing through water. Everything felt heavy. My legs, my chest, even my eyelids took effort to keep open. The lights pulsed again, stronger this time. The vibration climbed into something painful. My teeth ached. My bones felt like they were vibrating at a frequency that didn't match my body. I tried to scream, but no sound came out. Then time stopped, not slowed, stopped. I could see Silas beside me, frozen mid-breath. I could see the water, locked in place, the swells suspended like someone had pressed pause on reality. I could see the stars, fixed in the sky, not twinkling, not moving, just there. But I could still think. I could still see. I was aware of everything around me, even though nothing was moving. The lights descended. They moved down through the frozen air until they were level with the deck. And then they opened. I don't know how else to describe it. They didn't split or crack or unfold. They just opened like a door I couldn't see had been there all along. And inside there were shapes. Tall, thin, moving with a fluidity that didn't match the frozen world around them. One of the shapes approached me. I couldn't move. I couldn't run. I could only watch as it reached out with something that might have been a hand but wasn't shaped like a hand. It touched my forehead. The touch was cold, not painful, just cold. And then I saw images. Not images I was creating, images being shown to me. The lake, the light, the boat. But from above. From a perspective I'd never had. I saw myself standing on the deck, looking up. I saw Silas beside me. I saw the timeline stretching out like a thread, with knots where the encounters had occurred. The shape withdrew. Time started again. The lights were gone, the sky was empty. The water was moving. Silas gasped and grabbed the console. "What just happened?" he asked. I checked my watch. It read 20 to 34 hours. I looked at the chronometer. It read 2024 hours. 10 minutes, I said. My voice was hoarse. 10 minutes? We lost 10 minutes. Silas stared at me. I don't remember anything. I remember the lights coming toward us. Then nothing, then now. I remember, I said quietly. You remember what? I remember time stopping. I remember the lights opening. I remember something touching me. His face went white. Touching you? On my forehead. It was cold, and it showed me things. What things? Us, the lake, the timeline, all of it from above. Silas looked like he might be sick. He turned away and gripped the wheel. We need to get back, now. He fired up the engine and pushed the throttle forward. The boat leaped onto plane and we raced back toward Harbor Beach. I sat in the co-pilot seat and tried to process what I'd just experienced. The frozen world, the shapes, the images. It felt more real than a dream, but less solid than memory. When we reached the harbor, Silas didn't wait for clearance. He drove straight to the dock and killed the engine. We both climbed out and stood on solid ground, breathing hard. We can't report this, Silas said. We have to. If we report what you just told me, they'll pull us off duty. They'll send us for psych evaluations. They'll put it in our permanent files. I don't care. You should. This will follow you for the rest of your career. I know, but I'm not lying, and I'm not staying quiet. Silas looked at me for a long moment. Then he nodded. All right. We'll report it, together. We filed our reports that night. I wrote down everything. The 3 lights, the triangle formation, the time loss, the frozen world, the shapes, the touch, the images. I didn't hold anything back. Lieutenant Marsh read my report 3 times. When he finally looked up, his expression was unreadable. You understand how this sounds, he said. Yes, sir. You're telling me time stopped, and you were touched by something from inside the lights. Yes, sir. And you expect me to send this up the chain. I expect you to do your job, sir. I reported what I experienced. What you do with it is your decision. He set the report down. I'm going to send it up, but I'm also going to recommend a mandatory psychological evaluation. Not because I think you're lying, but because protocol requires it. I understand. Get some rest, Morgan. You look like hell. I went home and sat at my kitchen table. My hands were shaking. I couldn't stop them. I poured a glass of water and tried to drink it, but couldn't keep it steady. Eventually, I gave up and just sat there, staring at the wall. Around 0300 hours, I noticed something. A faint mark on my forehead. Right where the shape had touched me. It was barely visible, just a pale circle about the size of a dime. I went to the bathroom and looked in the mirror. The mark was clearer under the light. A perfect circle, smooth, no texture, just a slight change in pigmentation. I touched it, no pain, no sensation at all, just the visual proof that something had happened. I called Dr. Brennan. She answered even though it was the middle of the night. Miss Morgan, what's wrong? It happened again, and this time I have a mark. Where? On my forehead. Where it touched me. There was a pause. I'm sending a car. Pack a bag. You're coming to the facility. Now? Yes. Now. The car arrived an hour later. A plain sedan with a driver who didn't speak. I climbed in and we drove through the dark to Ann Arbor. I arrived at the facility just after dawn. Dr. Brennan met me at the entrance. Let me see it, she said. I pulled back my hair. She leaned in close, studying the mark. Then she took photos from multiple angles. Come with me. She led me to an exam room and ran a series of tests. Scans, blood work, cognitive assessments. Everything took hours. By the time she finished, it was early afternoon. "The mark is real," she said. "It's not a bruise, not a burn, not a rash. The skin tissue is normal on a cellular level, but the pigmentation has changed. It's consistent with the marks we've seen in other cases. Other people have marks on their foreheads. Some. Others have them on their hands, their arms, their necks. The location varies, but the appearance is always the same. A perfect circle. Smooth edges. Unexplained pigmentation change. What does it mean? We don't know, but it suggests direct contact, and that makes your case unique. You're the only one who remembers the contact occurring. Why? I don't know. Most people black out entirely during these encounters. They wake up with missing time and no memory of what happened. But you stayed conscious. You saw them. You felt the touch. That's unprecedented. Is that good or bad? I don't know yet. She sat down across from me. "Jenna, I need you to be completely honest with me. Have you experienced any other symptoms since the encounter? Headaches, nausea, changes in perception, anything unusual?" I thought about it. I've had trouble sleeping, and when I do sleep, I have dreams, not nightmares, just scenes, like I'm watching something happen from a distance. What kind of scenes? The lake, the lights, the shapes moving through the water. Sometimes I'm above it, looking down. Sometimes I'm in it, surrounded by blue light. It doesn't feel like a dream. It feels like a memory. But I know it's not. Dr. Brennan made notes. Anything else? Time feels different sometimes. Like I'll look at a clock and realize an hour has passed when it only felt like 10 minutes. Or I'll be doing something and suddenly it's later than I thought it should be. How often does this happen? Every few days. And you've never lost consciousness during these episodes? No, I'm always aware, just disconnected from the flow of time. She set her tablet down. I want to keep you here for observation, just for a few days. We need to monitor these symptoms and make sure they're not escalating. I can't. I have shifts. I've already cleared it with your station. You're on medical leave. I wanted to argue, but I was exhausted. The idea of sleeping in a place where someone was watching, where I didn't have to worry about what might happen if I closed my eyes, sounded like relief. "All right," I said. I stayed at the facility for 5 days. They ran tests every morning. Cognitive assessments, physical exams, sleep studies. The mark on my forehead didn't fade. If anything, it became more distinct. By the 3rd day, it was clearly visible without close inspection. Dr. Brennan visited me every afternoon. We talked about the encounters, the details, the sensations, the images I'd seen. She asked me to draw what the shapes looked like. I tried, but I couldn't capture them accurately. They didn't have fixed forms. They shifted depending on how I looked at them. On the 5th day, she sat down with a tablet and showed me something. "I want you to look at these images and tell me if any of them match what you saw." She scrolled through a series of drawings, shapes, figures. Some humanoid, some not. Some with clear features, some without. I went through all of them. None matched exactly. But one came close. A tall, thin figure with long limbs and a head that seemed too large for its body. No visible features, just a smooth surface where a face should be. "That one," I said. "It's not exact, but it's close." Dr. Brennan made a note. This drawing was made by another witness, a sailor in the Navy who had an encounter off the coast of California in 2003. He described time stopping and seeing shapes move through frozen air. He also had a mark on his hand. Did you follow up with him? We tried. He left the Navy 2 years later and we lost contact. We don't know where he is now. How many people have you lost contact with? 5. Out of the 20 cases we've documented, 5 individuals have disappeared from our tracking. They left their jobs, moved without forwarding addresses, and stopped responding to contact attempts. You think they're hiding? I think they're trying to move on, and I don't blame them. She closed the tablet. You're free to go, Jenna, but I want you to check in with me once a week. And if you have another encounter, I want you to call me immediately, anytime, day or night. What if I don't want to go back out there? Then don't. Request a transfer. Take a desk job. Do whatever you need to do to feel safe. I left the facility that evening and drove back to Harbor Beach. The drive felt long. The sky was overcast. The land looked gray and flat. When I reached my apartment, I sat in the car for a while, staring at the building, trying to decide if I wanted to go inside. Eventually, I got out and climbed the stairs. My apartment looked the same, but it felt different, like I'd been gone for months instead of days. I made coffee and sat at the kitchen table with my laptop. I opened the document I'd been keeping and added everything from the past week. The third encounter, the mark, the observation period, Dr. Brennan's questions, the drawing, the missing witnesses. When I finished, the document was over 20 pages long. I saved it, backed it up, and then I sat there staring at the screen, wondering what I was going to do next. I didn't want to quit. I loved the work. I loved the lake, but I couldn't ignore the fear that sat in my chest every time I thought about going back out on the water. Silas called me the next morning. You back? Yeah. How are you? Tired. You? Same. They put me on desk duty until I pass a psych evaluation. When's that? Next week. You? I don't know. Brennan wants me to check in weekly. But she didn't say anything about restricting my duty. You going back out? I hesitated. I don't know. Yeah, me neither. We talked for a few more minutes, and then hung up. I spent the rest of the day cleaning my apartment and trying not to think about the lights. But they were always there, hovering at the edge of my thoughts. That night, I had the dream again. The lake, the lights, the shapes moving through the water. But this time, I wasn't watching from above. I was in the water surrounded by blue light, and I could feel the cold pressing against my skin. I woke up at 0300 hours. My sheets were soaked with sweat. My heart was pounding. I touched my forehead. The mark was still there, smooth, cool, permanent. I got up and made coffee. I sat at the table and watched the sun rise through my kitchen window. When the light finally broke over the horizon, I made a decision. I wasn't going to run. I wasn't going to hide. I was going to keep working, keep watching, keep documenting. Because if I didn't, if I walked away and stayed quiet, then the fear would win, and I wasn't going to let that happen. I reported for duty the next morning. Lieutenant Marsh looked surprised to see me. I didn't expect you back this soon, he said. I'm ready. Are you sure? Yes, sir. He studied me for a moment, then he nodded. All right, you're on coastal patrol. Day shifts only. No offshore work until further notice. Understood. I ran patrols for the next 2 weeks without incident. The lake stayed calm, the sky stayed empty. The mark on my forehead faded slightly, but never disappeared. I checked in with Dr. Brennan every week. She asked the same questions. I gave the same answers. Nothing changed. But I knew it wasn't over. The pattern was clear. The encounters were escalating. The time loss was increasing. The intervals were shrinking. Whatever was happening, it wasn't done with me yet. I just didn't know what it wanted, or what it would take when it came back. And I knew, deep in my gut, that it would come back. It always did. So I kept working, kept watching, kept waiting. Because that's all I could do. That's all any of us could do. Wait for the frozen minutes to come again, and hope we'd still be ourselves when they did. My name is Eric Stallman. I've been with the United States Coast Guard for 14 years, the last 7 stationed at Ludington on the eastern shore of Lake Michigan. I'm writing this because what happened on the night of September 23rd can't be explained by weather, equipment failure, or human error. I've checked every angle. I've reviewed every possible rational explanation. None of them fit. What we found that night shouldn't exist. But it did, and it left evidence that I can't dismiss no matter how hard I try. My partner that night was Avery Huxley. She's 31, been with the Guard for 9 years, and she has the kind of instinct for trouble that keeps people alive on the water. She can read a situation faster than most people can process it. When something feels wrong, she knows before anyone else does. That instinct saved us more than once over the years. We were running a night patrol in a response boat medium, a 45-footer built for longer range operations. The weather was mild for late September. Temperature in the low 50s, light winds from the south, 2-foot swells rolling in steady lines. Visibility was good, maybe 4 miles, with a clear sky and a half moon casting pale light across the water. At 2132 hours, we received a call from dispatch. Station Ludington to RBM 7, we have a report of a disabled vessel approximately 3 miles north of your current position. Possible abandoned craft. Local fishermen called it in. No lights visible, no response to radio contact. I picked up the handset. RBM 7 copies. Moving to investigate. ETA 12 minutes. Copy that. Fishermen described it as a small open boat, white hull, approximately 18 feet, drifting close to shore. Understood. Avery adjusted our heading and opened the throttle. The RBM climbed onto plane, and we cut through the swells at 30 knots. The engine noise filled the cabin. I checked the GPS coordinates against our position and plotted the intercept course. "You ever get a call like this that turned out to be nothing?" Avery asked. "A few times. Usually, it's a rental that broke loose from a dock or someone who beached their boat and walked away without securing it properly. Let's hope it's that simple." We approached the coordinates, and Avery throttled back. The boat settled into the water, and we slowed to idle speed. I grabbed the spotlight and swept it across the water. The beam cut through the darkness and lit up the swells in sharp relief. There, about 50 yards off our starboard side. A small open boat, white fiberglass hull, no lights, no movement. It sat low in the water, rocking gently with the swells. The transom was visible, but I couldn't make out a name or registration number from this distance. "Visual contact," I said. Moving closer. Avery maneuvered us alongside the drifting boat. I kept the spotlight on it and scanned for any signs of damage or occupants. The boat appeared intact. No visible hull damage. No torn canvas. No debris. Just a clean white boat floating alone in the dark. We pulled up parallel, and I grabbed a boat hook to secure it. The deck was bone dry despite the fact that the boat had been drifting for at least an hour, according to the fisherman's report. That struck me as odd. Even in calm water, you'd expect some spray or condensation. "I'm boarding," I said. "Careful." I stepped across onto the deck. The boat rocked under my weight but stayed stable. I moved toward the small console at the center. The steering wheel was straight. The throttle was in neutral. The keys were in the ignition. I turned the key. The engine turned over immediately and started without hesitation. Clean idle. No rough running. No signs of mechanical failure. "Engine's fine," I called to Avery. "Then why was it drifting?" "I don't know." I killed the engine and moved to check the rest of the boat. There were 2 bench seats, a small storage compartment in the bow, and fishing gear stowed neatly along the gunnels. I opened the storage compartment. Life jackets, a first aid kit, flares, a handheld radio, all the required safety equipment. Then I noticed the fishing nets. They were laid out across the stern deck, neatly folded, still damp. I touched one. Water dripped from the mesh onto my glove. Fresh water, not lake water. I could tell by the way it beaded and the lack of any smell. "Avery, come look at this." She secured our boat to the drifting craft and stepped across. I showed her the nets. "Fresh water," I said. "The deck is completely dry, but the nets are soaking wet with fresh water." She touched the mesh and rubbed the water between her fingers. "That doesn't make sense. If he was fishing, the nets would be wet with lake water. And if the deck is dry, the nets should be too." "Exactly." We searched the rest of the boat. No personal items, no wallet, no phone, no jacket, nothing to identify the owner. The registration sticker on the hull was faded but legible. I radioed the number back to dispatch. "RBM-7 to Station Ludington. We've secured the vessel. Registration number Mike Bravo 47329er. Boat appears abandoned. No occupants. No signs of distress. Engine functional. Requesting owner information." "Stand by, 7. We waited. The two boats drifted together in the quiet water. The moon cast long shadows across the decks. I kept thinking about the fresh water on the nets. It bothered me in a way I couldn't articulate. The radio crackled. "RBM-7, registered owner is Thomas Garrett, age 54, Ludington resident. We're attempting to contact him now. Stand by your position." "Copy that." Avery and I stood on the deck of the abandoned boat and waited. The wind was light but steady. The water lapped gently against the hulls. Everything felt normal except for the detail that kept nagging at me. Fresh water. On nets. In the middle of Lake Michigan. "You think he went overboard?" Avery asked. "If he did, we should search the area, but there's no signs of struggle. No blood, no torn clothing, nothing to suggest trauma. Maybe he had a medical emergency. Heart attack, stroke, something sudden. Then where's the body? Drifted away before the boat was spotted. Possible, but unlikely. The current here is minimal. If he went over, he'd be close." We scanned the water with the spotlight. No debris, no floating objects, no body. Just empty water stretching out in every direction. At 22:07 hours, dispatch called back. "RBM-7, we've made contact with Thomas Garrett. He's at home. He secured his boat at the marina this afternoon around 1600 hours. He has no knowledge of how it ended up out here." I exchanged a glance with Therakas with Avery. "Station, confirm the boat was secured at the marina as of 1600 hours today?" "Affirmative. Mr. Garrett is certain. He locked it to the dock and checked the lines personally." "Copy that. We'll tow it back." "Acknowledged. Marina staff will meet you at the dock." We rigged a tow line and started the slow trip back to Ludington. Avery handled the helm while I stood at the stern watching the abandoned boat trail behind us. The whole situation felt wrong. A boat secured at 1600 hours doesn't drift 3 miles offshore by 2100 hours without someone taking it. And if someone took it, why leave it drifting with the keys in the ignition and the engine running fine? We were halfway back to shore when Avery called out from the helm. "Eric, look at the shoreline." I turned and followed her pointing finger. There, hovering maybe 20 feet above the beach, was a ring of white light. Not a circle on the ground, not a spotlight beam. A ring. A perfect geometric ring suspended in the air, glowing with a steady pale luminescence. "What is that?" Avery asked. "I don't know." The ring was large, maybe 30 feet in diameter, and perfectly level. It didn't move, it didn't flicker. It just existed, hanging in the air above the sand like someone had drawn it there with phosphorescent paint. I grabbed the binoculars and focused on it. Through the glass, I could see the ring more clearly. It had depth, maybe a foot thick, and the edges were sharp and defined. The light didn't cast shadows on the ground beneath it. The beach stayed dark despite the proximity of this bright floating object. "Should we report it?" Avery asked. "Report what? An unidentified light? They'll think we're seeing things." "We are seeing things, that's the problem." I tried the radio anyway. "Station Ludington, RBM 7. We have visual contact with an unusual light source on the beach approximately 1 mile south of the harbor entrance, requesting guidance." Static filled the channel. Thick, harsh, unbroken. I adjusted the squelch. The static didn't change. I switched channels. Same result. "Communications are down," I said. Avery's hands tightened on the wheel. "That's not a coincidence." "No, it's not." We kept moving toward the shore. The ring stayed in place, hovering above the beach, silent and motionless. As we got closer, I noticed something else. The sound of the waves breaking on the shore had stopped, not faded. Stopped. I could see the swells rolling in, I could see the water moving, but I couldn't hear it. "Avery, do you hear that?" "I don't hear anything, that's the point." The absence of sound was complete. No waves, no wind, no engine noise, despite the fact that our engine was running. It was like someone had muted the entire world. We were 300 yards from shore when the ring pulsed. Once, a soft throb of light that made my vision blur for half a second. When it cleared, the ring had moved. Not along the beach, closer to us. It now hovered directly over the water, maybe 100 yards ahead of our bow. "It moved," Avery said quietly. "I saw it. Without transitioning, it was there. Now it's here. I know." She pulled back on the throttle. Our boat slowed. The towed craft behind us drifted closer, the line going slack. We sat there in the silent darkness, staring at the white ring suspended above the water. "What do we do?" Avery asked. Before I could answer, the ring pulsed again, stronger this time. I felt it in my chest, a vibration that made my ribs hum. The towed boat behind us jerked suddenly, the line snapping taut, and then it began to move. Not toward us, toward the ring. "Eric, the boat's being pulled." I turned and watched. The abandoned craft was sliding through the water, drawn toward the ring by some invisible force. The tow line stretched and groaned. I grabbed it and felt the tension. It was like the boat was hooked to something massive. "Cut it loose," Avery said. "We can't, that's evidence. Cut it loose or it's going to pull us with it." She was right, the tension was increasing. Our boat was starting to drift backward, pulled by the tow line. I grabbed the knife from my belt and sawed through the line. It parted with a snap, and the abandoned boat accelerated toward the ring. It passed under the ring and nothing happened. The boat just kept moving, drifting beyond the ring and continuing north along the shore. The ring stayed in place. The pulling force was gone. We sat there, breathing hard, trying to process what we'd just seen. The ring pulsed one more time, then slowly rose higher into the air. It climbed 20 feet, 50 feet, 100 feet, until it was just a faint circle of light against the dark sky. Then it was gone. Not faded, just gone. Like someone had switched it off. Sound returned. The waves, the wind, the engine. Everything came back at once, and the sudden noise was almost painful after the silence. I tried the radio. It worked. "Station Ludington, RBM 7, do you copy?" "We copy, 7. You dropped off the air for about 3 minutes. What's your status?" 3 minutes. I looked at my watch. It read 22:41 hours. I looked at the boat's chronometer. It read 22:38 hours. "We're operational," I said. "Lost the tow line on the abandoned vessel. It's drifting north along the shoreline. We'll need another boat to retrieve it." "Copy that. Return to base. We'll dispatch another crew." Avery turned the boat toward the harbor and pushed the throttle forward. Neither of us spoke. We didn't need to. We both knew what we'd seen, and we both knew it didn't make sense. We reached the harbor at 22:55 hours and tied up at the station dock. I stepped off the boat and my legs felt weak. Avery stood beside me, staring out at the dark water. "We need to report this," she said. "Report what? A floating ring of light that pulled a boat and made sound disappear?" "Yes. They'll think we're crazy." "I don't care. We saw what we saw, and we have a 3-minute time gap to back it up." She was right. We filed our reports separately in the station office. I kept mine factual. Time of initial contact with the abandoned vessel. Description of the fresh water on the nets. Visual observation of the white ring. Radio failure. Sound cessation. The pulling force on the tow line. Time discrepancy. I didn't speculate, I just documented. The night supervisor, Commander Hayes, read my report twice without speaking. Then he set it down and looked at me with an expression I couldn't read. "You're telling me you saw a ring of light that moved without transitioning and pulled an 18-foot boat through the water?" "Yes, sir." "And during this time, all sound stopped and your radio went dead?" "Correct." "And you lost 3 minutes. My watch gained 3 minutes. The boat's chronometer stayed accurate." Hayes leaned back in his chair. "I'm going to need you to submit to a standard medical evaluation. Both of you." "Understood. I'm not saying I don't believe you, but this is the kind of report that raises questions. Big questions. And before I send it up the chain, I need to make sure you're both in good health and sound mind." "We are, sir." "Then the evaluation will confirm that. Report to medical at 0800 tomorrow." We left the office and walked to the parking lot. Avery stopped beside her truck and turned to me. "You ever seen anything like that before?" she asked. "No." "Me neither. And I've been on this lake for 9 years." "What do you think it was?" "I don't know, but I know it wasn't weather, and it wasn't equipment failure. That thing had intention. It moved toward us, it pulled the boat, it knew we were there." I felt cold despite the mild night. "Yeah, it did." We stood there for a moment, neither of us wanting to leave. Finally, Avery climbed into her truck. "Get some sleep," she said. "We'll figure this out tomorrow." But I didn't sleep. I went home and sat at my kitchen table, replaying the sequence in my head. The abandoned boat, the fresh water on the nets, the ring hovering above the beach, the way it moved without moving, the silence, the pulling force, the 3 missing minutes. None of it fit together. None of it made sense. But it had happened, I'd seen it, I'd felt it, and I had Avery as a witness. Around 0300 hours, I noticed something. A faint tingling in my hands. Not painful, just noticeable. Like a mild electric current running under the skin. I flexed my fingers, the sensation didn't change. I went to the bathroom and looked at my hands under the light. Nothing visible. No marks, no discoloration, just the feeling that something was different. I tried to sleep, but couldn't. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw the white ring hanging in the air, pulsing, watching. I got up and made coffee. I sat at the table and watched the sun rise through my kitchen window, wondering what the medical evaluation would find. Avery and I reported to the medical station at 0800 hours. The base medic, Lieutenant Foster, ran the standard battery of tests. Blood pressure, heart rate, coordination, cognitive function. Everything came back normal. He drew blood and told us the lab results would take a day or two. "Any unusual symptoms?" he asked. "Headaches, nausea, dizziness?" "No," I said. "Just some tingling in my hands. Started a few hours after the incident." He examined my hands, pressing on the palms, checking circulation, testing sensation. "Everything looks normal. The tingling could be stress-related. If it persists, come back and see me." Avery reported no symptoms. Foster cleared us both for duty and sent us back to Commander Hayes. Hayes was in his office with our reports on his desk. He gestured for us to sit. "Medical cleared you both," he said. "That's good. Now I need to decide what to do with these reports." "Are you going to send them up the chain?" I asked. "I'm going to send them, but I'm also going to add a note explaining that you are both experienced, reliable personnel with clean records. If someone wants to question this, they'll have to go through me first. Thank you, sir." He picked up my report and read a section aloud. "Fresh water on fishing nets despite dry deck. Can you explain that?" "No, sir, I can't." "And this white ring. You're certain it was a ring, not a circle of light on the ground, not a spotlight beam, a three-dimensional ring floating in the air?" "Yes, sir, I'm certain. So is Petty Officer Huxley." "And it pulled the boat?" "Yes, sir. The tow line was under tension, significant tension. When I cut it, the boat accelerated toward the ring." Hayes set the report down. "All right, I'm sending these up, but I want you both to know that this is going to draw attention. The kind of attention that comes with follow-up questions and possibly more evaluations. Are you prepared for that?" "Yes, sir," we both said. "Good, you're dismissed. Regular patrol assignments resume tomorrow." We left the office and walked to the break room. Avery poured coffee and sat down heavily in a chair. "Do you think they'll believe us?" she asked. "I don't know, but I'm glad Hayes is backing us up." "Yeah, me too." We sat in silence for a while, drinking coffee and trying to make sense of what had happened. Finally, Avery spoke. "That boat, the one that got pulled, they'll recover it eventually. And when they do, I want to see it again. I want to check those nets." "Why?" "Because if the fresh water is still there, it's proof that something unusual happened. And if it's gone, that's also proof." She was right. Physical evidence. That's what we needed. Something concrete that couldn't be explained away as stress or misperception. "I'll talk to Hayes," I said. "See if we can be there when they bring it in." "Good." We finished our coffee and went our separate ways. I spent the rest of the day trying to stay busy, but my mind kept drifting back to the white ring. The way it hung in the air, the way it moved, the way it pulled the boat like it was reeling in a fish on a line. That night, I had the first dream. I was standing on the deck of the abandoned boat, looking up at the white ring. It was directly above me, so close I could feel warmth radiating from it. Not heat, just a gentle warmth that made my skin tingle. The ring pulsed, and I felt myself rising off the deck, floating upward, drawn toward the light. I tried to resist, but couldn't. My body moved on its own, pulled by a force I couldn't see or fight. I passed through the ring, and everything went white. I woke up at 04:30 hours, sweating and disoriented. My hands were tingling again. Stronger this time. I got up and ran cold water over them. The sensation faded, but didn't disappear completely. I made coffee and sat at the table, trying to calm down. It was just a dream, stress. My mind processing the events of the previous night. Nothing more. But it felt like more. It felt like a memory, like something that had actually happened. I checked my watch. It was running normally. I checked my phone. Same time. No discrepancies. No missing minutes. Just a bad dream and tingling hands that wouldn't quite go away. I reported for my shift at 0800 hours. Avery was already there, looking as tired as I felt. "You okay?" she asked. "Didn't sleep well, you?" "Same. Bad dreams." "About the ring?" She nodded. "I was in the water, looking up at it. It was pulling me. I couldn't stop it." My chest tightened. I had the same dream. Different details, but the same core. The ring pulling me. We stared at each other. Neither of us wanted to say what we were both thinking. That maybe the dreams weren't just dreams. That maybe something had happened during those 3 missing minutes that we couldn't remember. Commander Hayes found us in the briefing room. "The abandoned boat was recovered this morning. It's at the marina. Garrett picked it up an hour ago. If you want to examine it, you'll need to do it now before he takes it home." "We'd like to see it," I said. "Go ahead. You're off patrol until this afternoon anyway." Avery and I drove to the marina. Thomas Garrett was standing on the dock beside his boat, inspecting the hull for damage. He was a tall man, weathered and lean, with the look of someone who'd spent decades on the water. "Mr. Garrett?" I called out. He turned. "That's me." We introduced ourselves and explained that we were the crew who'd found his boat. He shook our hands and thanked us. "I still don't understand how it got out there," he said. "I locked it up tight. The lines were secure. I checked them twice." "Do you mind if we look at it?" Avery asked. There was something unusual we noticed when we found it. "Go ahead." We stepped onto the boat. I moved directly to the stern where the fishing nets had been. They were still there, folded in the same position. I touched them, completely dry. Not a trace of moisture. Avery knelt beside me and examined the mesh closely. "They're dry," she said quietly. "Yeah, but they were soaking wet last night with fresh water." "I know." Garrett heard us and walked over. "What's this about fresh water?" I hesitated, then decided to be honest. "When we found your boat last night, these nets were wet, dripping wet, with fresh water, not lake water, but the rest of the deck was bone dry." He frowned. "That doesn't make sense. I was fishing yesterday morning. The nets got wet then, but they should have dried by the afternoon. I checked them when I tied up at 4. They were dry." "And they're dry now," Avery said. "So what happened in between?" Garrett asked. "We don't know." He looked at us like he wasn't sure whether to be concerned or annoyed. "Is there something you're not telling me?" I chose my words carefully. "We saw something unusual when we were towing your boat back, a light hovering over the water. After that, the boat was pulled toward it, and we had to cut the tow line." His expression changed. The annoyance faded, replaced by something else, wariness. Maybe fear. "What kind of light?" "A white ring, about 30 feet across, floating in the air." He was quiet for a long moment. Then he nodded slowly. "I've heard stories. Fishermen talk. Most of them won't say anything official because they don't want to sound crazy. But there are stories about lights on this lake, especially in the fall." "What kind of stories?" Avery asked. "Boats found drifting with no one aboard. Equipment that works fine but shouldn't. Time that doesn't add up right. And lights, always lights. Different colors, different shapes, but always the same result. People lose track of what happened, and they don't want to talk about it afterward." "Have you seen anything like that?" I asked. "Once. 10 years ago, I was out at night fishing for salmon. I saw a green light under the water. Big. Moving fast. It passed under my boat and I felt the whole thing lift slightly, like something had pushed it from below. Then it was gone. I told my wife, never told anyone else, didn't see the point." "Did anything strange happen after that? Missing time, unusual symptoms, anything?" I couldn't find my watch. Had it on when I went out. Wasn't wearing it when I got back. Never found it. And for about a week after, I had this ringing in my ears. Not constant, just now and then, like a high-pitched tone that would come and go. Avery and I exchanged a look. Garrett's story fit the pattern. A light, strange behavior, missing objects, physical symptoms. It was all there. Mr. Garrett, if anything else unusual happens with your boat, would you let us know? I asked. Sure, but I'm not taking it out again for a while. Not until the weather turns. Maybe not even then. We thanked him and left the marina. As we walked back to the truck, Avery spoke quietly. He saw something too. 10 years ago, and it left effects. I know. How many other people have seen things on this lake and never reported it? I don't know. But I'm starting to think it's more than we'd guess. We drove back to the station in silence. I kept thinking about Garrett's story. The green light, the lifted boat, the missing watch, the ringing in his ears. All small details, all impossible to prove. But all consistent with the idea that something was happening on this lake. Something that people noticed but didn't talk about. That afternoon, Avery and I ran a routine patrol. Nothing unusual. The water was calm, the sky was clear, and the radio worked perfectly. But I couldn't shake the feeling that I was being watched. Not by another boat or by someone on shore. By something I couldn't see. Something that was paying attention. 2 days after we found the abandoned boat, I received a call from an unfamiliar number. A man's voice, calm and professional, identified himself as Dr. Marcus Tennant from the Coast Guard's Medical Research Division. I've reviewed your incident report, he said. I'd like to ask you a few follow-up questions. Are you available to speak now? Yes. You reported seeing a white ring hovering above the water. Can you describe it in detail? I described the size, the shape, the way it glowed with steady white light. I told him about the way it moved without transition, the way sound stopped, the way it pulled the abandoned boat. And you experienced a time discrepancy, he said. Your watch gained 3 minutes while the boat's chronometer remained accurate. Correct. Have you experienced any physical symptoms since the incident? Tingling in my hands. It started a few hours after and comes and goes. Any other symptoms? Headaches, nausea, sleep disturbances? I've had some unusual dreams, vivid dreams about the ring, about being pulled toward it. Can you describe these dreams? I told him about the recurring theme, standing in or near water, looking up at the ring, feeling myself being drawn upward, the warmth, the white light, waking up disoriented. And Petty Officer Huxley has reported similar dreams? Yes, we talked about it. There was a pause. I could hear him typing. Mr. Stallman, I'd like you to come to our facility in Ann Arbor for a comprehensive evaluation. It's voluntary, but I believe it would be beneficial. When? Is this Friday feasible? I'll need to clear it with my commander. I'll arrange that. You'll receive travel orders by end of day. Plan for an overnight stay. We'll cover all expenses. What kind of evaluation? Standard medical workup, cognitive testing, sleep study. Nothing invasive. We're simply trying to understand the effects of these encounters. These encounters. You're saying this has happened before? Yes, I'll explain more when you arrive. Thank you for your time, Mr. Stallman. He hung up before I could ask anything else. I sat in my apartment staring at the phone, trying to process what he'd said. These encounters, plural, meaning other people had seen things like the white ring. Other people had lost time, had strange dreams, felt tingling in their hands. I wasn't alone, and that was both comforting and terrifying. The travel orders arrived that afternoon. Report to the Medical Research Facility in Ann Arbor on Friday at 900 hours. Duration, 2 days. Avery received the same orders. We'd be going together. On Friday morning, we drove to Ann Arbor. The facility was located on the edge of the university campus, a modern glass and steel building that looked more like a tech company headquarters than a medical center. We checked in at the front desk and were escorted to the 3rd floor. Dr. Tennant met us in a conference room. He was in his late 40s, lean and precise, with sharp eyes that seemed to catalog everything. He shook our hands and gestured to chairs. "Thank you for coming. I know this is an inconvenience." "It's fine," I said. "I've reviewed both of your reports. Before we begin the evaluations, I want to provide some context. What I'm about to tell you is not classified, but it's not public information either. The Coast Guard has been documenting unusual incidents on the Great Lakes for approximately 15 years. During that time, we've recorded 31 cases involving unidentified aerial or aquatic phenomena." My pulse quickened. 31. Correct. The incidents share common characteristics: unusual lights, equipment malfunctions, time discrepancies, and in most cases, physical or psychological effects on the witnesses. "What kind of effects?" Avery asked. "Tingling sensations in extremities, vivid dreams with recurring themes, disrupted sleep patterns, mild cognitive changes such as difficulty with short-term memory or temporal perception. In a few cases, marks on the skin." "Marks?" I said. "Small, circular discolorations, similar to scars but without any history of injury. They appear weeks or months after the initial encounter." I felt cold. "Have any of us developed marks?" "Not yet, but we're monitoring all recent witnesses. If marks appear, we need to document them immediately." "What causes them?" Avery asked. "We don't know. We've biopsied several. The tissue is normal, no foreign material, no radiation signature, nothing that explains the discoloration. But the pattern is consistent across multiple witnesses." Dr. Tennant opened a folder and spread several photographs across the table. Each showed a circular mark on someone's hand, arm, or shoulder. The circles were pale, smooth, and perfectly round, exactly as he'd described. "These are from previous cases," he said. "Note the uniformity. Same size, approximately 1 centimeter in diameter, same appearance, same location relative to major nerve clusters. You think whatever caused the encounters is also causing the marks?" I asked. "I think there's a connection, but I can't prove it yet. That's why we need to monitor you closely. If marks appear, if symptoms change, if you have another encounter, we need to know immediately." He collected the photographs and closed the folder. "Now, let's begin the evaluations. We'll start with cognitive testing, then a physical exam, and tonight we'll conduct a sleep study." The cognitive tests took 2 hours. Pattern recognition, memory recall, spatial reasoning, temporal estimation. The examiner asked me to judge how much time had passed during various tasks. I thought I was accurate, but the results showed I was consistently off by 5 to 10%. I estimated durations as longer than they actually were. The physical exam was thorough. Blood work, ECG, neurological assessment, reflex testing. Everything came back normal except for one detail. My core body temperature was slightly elevated, not a fever, just 0.7 degrees higher than baseline. Dr. Tennant made a note, but didn't seem surprised. "Elevated temperature is common in the weeks following an encounter," he said. "It typically resolves on its own." That night, they set me up in a sleep study room. Electrodes on my scalp, chest, and legs. A camera in the corner, a microphone to record any vocalizations. I lay in the bed, staring at the ceiling, wondering if I'd be able to sleep at all under these conditions. I drifted off sometime after midnight, and the dreams came immediately. I was standing on a beach. The white ring hovered above the water, pulsing gently. I walked toward it, drawn by some compulsion I couldn't resist. My feet moved on their own. When I reached the water's edge, I stepped in. The water was warm, warmer than it should be. I waded deeper, keeping my eyes on the ring. It descended slowly, coming down to meet me. When it was level with my chest, I reached out and touched it. The light flared. I felt a shock run through my body, not painful, but intense. My vision filled with white. And then I was somewhere else. A vast space, curved walls, blue-tinted light filtering through translucent panels. Shapes moved around me, tall and thin, with limbs that bent at angles that didn't match human anatomy. They didn't speak. They didn't touch me. They just observed. One of them approached and extended what might have been a hand. It touched my forehead and I felt cold spread from the point of contact. Not freezing cold, just the absence of warmth. And then images flooded my mind. The lake from above, the shoreline, the marina, the abandoned boat, everything I'd seen that night, but from a different perspective, from the ring's perspective. I woke up gasping. The room was dark except for the glow of the monitoring equipment. I checked the clock. It was 03:27 hours. I'd been asleep for just over 3 hours. My hands were tingling. My forehead felt cold where the shape had touched me in the dream. I touched my forehead. No mark, no discoloration, just skin that felt slightly cooler than the rest of my face. A technician entered the room and checked the monitors. "You okay? Your heart rate spiked." "I'm fine, just a bad dream. Do you remember it?" I hesitated. The dream was still vivid, too vivid. Some of it. "Dr. Tennant will want to hear about it in the morning. Try to get some more sleep if you can." But I couldn't. I lay there until dawn, replaying the dream in my head, the beach, the ring, the touch, the cold, the images of the lake from above. It felt like more than a dream. It felt like I'd been somewhere. Like something had happened while I was asleep that went beyond normal dreaming. The next morning, Dr. Tennant reviewed the sleep study results with me. My REM cycles were normal, but my brain activity during REM was elevated. More intense than typical dreaming. "You had a vivid dream," he said. "Tell me about it." I described it in detail. The beach, the ring, the touch, the cold, the images. He took notes without interrupting. "Have you had this dream before?" he asked. "Similar dreams, but not this specific, not this clear. The touch on your forehead, where exactly did you feel it?" I pointed to the spot, just above and between my eyebrows. He examined the area closely. No visible marks, but he photographed it anyway. "If anything appears here, even a faint discoloration, I need you to call me immediately." "You think something's going to appear?" I think the dream was significant. More than just your mind processing the encounter. I think you were shown something. Shown what? I don't know. But the pattern in your brain activity suggests you were receiving information, not generating it. That's unusual. He sat back and folded his hands. "Mr. Stallman, I'm going to be direct with you. Based on your report, your symptoms, and these test results, I believe you're experiencing ongoing contact with whatever created the white ring. The dreams aren't random. They're communication attempts, or observation, or something else we don't have words for yet. What do I do? Document everything. Keep a detailed log. Dates, times, dream content, physical sensations. And stay in contact with me. If you have another encounter, call immediately. Don't wait. Don't file a report first. Call me." He handed me a card with his direct number. "Day or night, understood?" "Understood." Avery's evaluation followed a similar pattern: elevated temperature, temporal misperception, intense REM activity. She'd had dreams too, though different in content. She dreamed of being underwater, looking up at the ring from below, feeling it pull her toward the surface. We drove back to Ludington together. Neither of us spoke much. The evaluations had confirmed what we already suspected. Something was happening to us, something ongoing. And it wasn't going to stop just because we wanted it to. "You think they're telling us everything?" Avery asked. "No. I think they know more than they're sharing. But I also think they're genuinely trying to understand it. They don't have all the answers either. That's not comforting." "No, it's not." We returned to regular duty the following week. Patrols, inspections, training exercises, everything normal. But I couldn't shake the feeling that I was waiting for something, that the encounter with the white ring wasn't over. It was just paused. 3 weeks after the initial incident, on October 14th, it happened again. Avery and I were running a night patrol. Clear sky, calm water, routine route. We were about 5 miles offshore when the radar started showing an anomaly, a contact that appeared and disappeared, flickering on and off the screen. "Contact," Avery said. "Bearing 270, 3 miles, intermittent return." I checked the screen. The signature was there, then gone, then back. Not moving, just blinking in and out of existence on the radar. "Let's check it out," I said. We adjusted course and headed toward the contact. As we got closer, I saw it. The white ring, larger than before, maybe 50 feet in diameter, hovering about 40 feet above the water. It pulsed slowly, like a heartbeat, casting pale light across the swells. "It's back," Avery said quietly. "I see it." "What do we do?" "We observe. We don't approach. And we call Dr. Tennant." I picked up the radio. Before I could speak, static filled the channel. I tried switching frequencies. Same result. The radio was dead. "Communications are down," I said. The ring pulsed again. Stronger. I felt the vibration in my chest. My vision blurred. When it cleared, the ring had moved. It was now directly ahead of us, maybe 200 yards away, blocking our path. Avery cut the throttle. "It's between us and the harbor." "I know." The ring began to descend, slowly, deliberately, coming down toward the water. As it lowered, the surface beneath it changed. The swells flattened. The water went perfectly still, like glass. The ring descended until its lower edge touched the surface, and then it kept going. It sank into the water without a splash, without disturbing the stillness, until half of it was submerged. "Eric, what's it doing?" "I don't know." The submerged half of the ring began to glow brighter. The light spread through the water, illuminating the depths. I could see down through the clear water, 20 feet, 30 feet, farther than should have been possible at night. And in the light, I saw shapes, moving below the surface. Long, serpentine shapes that undulated through the water like massive eels. But they weren't eels. They were too large, too smooth, too deliberate in their movements. One of them rose toward the surface. It came up directly beneath our boat. I felt the hull lift slightly as the shape passed under us. It was at least 30 feet long, maybe more. The surface was metallic, seamless, with no visible seams or features. It moved without creating turbulence. The water around it stayed calm. "Avery, do you see that?" "I see it." The shape circled beneath us, then descended back into the depths. The light began to fade. The ring rose back out of the water, lifting into the air, resuming its position above the surface. It pulsed one more time, then shot straight up into the sky. It climbed fast, accelerating, shrinking to a point of light and then disappearing. Sound returned. The waves, the engine, the wind. Everything came back at once. I checked my watch. It read 2319 hours. I checked the chronometer. It read 2312 hours. 7 minutes, I said. I lost 7 minutes? We both did. The radio crackled to life. RBM 7, this is Station Luddington. We lost your signal. What's your status? I picked up the handset with shaking hands. We're operational, returning to base. Copy that. We turned toward the harbor. Neither of us spoke for the entire trip back. When we reached the dock and tied up, Avery turned to me. We saw something under the water, something physical. I know. That wasn't a light, that was an object, a craft. I know. We need to report this. We will, but first we're calling Dr. Tennant. I called him from my truck. He answered on the second ring. Mr. Stallman, what happened? I told him everything, the white ring, the descent into the water, the shapes below, the craft that passed under our boat, the 7-minute time loss. Are you both all right? He asked. Physically, yes, but this was different from the first encounter. We saw something solid, something that moved through the water. I'll arrange for immediate evaluations. Can you both drive to Ann Arbor tomorrow? Yes. Good. I'll send the details within the hour. In the meantime, write down everything you remember. Every detail. And don't discuss this with anyone except Commander Hayes. Understood. I hung up and sat in the truck trying to steady my breathing. Avery was in her truck beside me, probably doing the same thing. We'd just seen something that shouldn't exist. Something that moved through water without disturbing it. Something that came from the white ring and returned to it. This wasn't just lights anymore. This was contact. Physical, undeniable contact with something that operated by rules we didn't understand. And whatever it was coming back. I could feel it. The encounters were getting closer together, more intense, more deliberate. It was escalating, and I didn't know how to stop it. The drive to Ann Arbor the next morning felt longer than it should have. Avery and I didn't talk much. We were both exhausted, running on coffee and adrenaline. I kept replaying the image of that craft moving under our boat, the way the water stayed calm around it, the way it glided through the depths without sound or wake. Dr. Tennant met us in the same conference room as before. He looked tired too, like he'd been up all night reviewing data or making calls. He gestured for us to sit and opened his laptop. I've reviewed your preliminary report, he said. Before we begin the evaluations, I want you to look at something. He turned the laptop screen toward us. It showed a photograph of water, dark and murky, taken from below the surface. In the center of the image was a shape, long, cylindrical, smooth. It looked like the craft we'd seen. Where was this taken? I asked. Lake Superior, August 2019. A research submarine was conducting a deep water survey when they captured this image at approximately 200 feet. The object passed within 50 feet of the submarine. The crew reported that their instruments went dead for approximately 4 minutes during the encounter. Did they recover any physical evidence? Avery asked. No, the object moved too quickly, but they did record something unusual. Water samples taken immediately after the encounter showed elevated levels of deuterium. Deuterium? I said. Heavy water. It occurs naturally, but in very small concentrations. The samples from the encounter site showed levels 3 times higher than baseline. The effect lasted for approximately 6 hours, then returned to normal. What does that mean? We don't know, but it suggests the objects are capable of altering their environment at a molecular level, and that has significant implications. He closed the laptop and leaned forward. Mr. Stallman, Miss Huxley, I need to ask you both something, and I need you to answer honestly. Do you want to continue working on the water?" I exchanged a glance with Avery. She spoke first. "I'm not going to let this drive me away from my job." "Neither am I," I said. Dr. Tennant nodded slowly. "I respect that. But I need you to understand something. Based on the pattern we're seeing, you're both likely to have additional encounters. The intervals are decreasing, the intensity is increasing, and we don't know where it ends." "What are you saying?" Avery asked. "I'm saying that whatever is causing these encounters has identified you, marked you, and it's continuing to observe you. If you stay on the water, especially at night, you're going to see it again." The weight of that statement settled over the room. Marked. That word again. Like we were part of some experiment or study that we hadn't consented to. "Can you stop it?" I asked. "No. We've tried various interventions with previous witnesses. Different duty assignments, geographic relocation, even medical leave. In most cases, the encounters continue. Sometimes they stop after a certain period. Sometimes they don't. We haven't identified a pattern that allows us to predict cessation." "How long have some people experienced encounters?" Avery asked. "The longest documented case is 5 years. A commercial fisherman on Lake Huron. He reported regular sightings, usually once every few months, for 5 years. Then they stopped. We don't know why." "And the marks?" I asked. "When do those appear?" "Typically between 2 and 6 months after the initial encounter. Not everyone develops them. About 60% of witnesses show marks. The rest don't. We haven't determined what factors influence whether marks appear." He opened a drawer and pulled out 2 devices that looked like modified fitness trackers. "I want you both to wear these. They monitor heart rate, core temperature, and electrical activity on the skin. If you have another encounter, they'll record your physiological response. The data transmits to our servers in real time." We each took a device and strapped it to our wrists. "One more thing," Dr. Tennant said. "If you see the white ring again, I need you to try something. Approach it. Get as close as you safely can. Document everything. Take photos if possible. We need to understand how it responds to direct human interaction. You want us to get closer to the thing that's been pulling boats and showing us underwater craft," Avery said. "I know it sounds counterintuitive, but we have 31 documented cases and almost no direct observational data during close approach. Most witnesses maintain distance or experience time loss that prevents clear documentation. You're both trained observers. If you can remain conscious and aware during a close approach, the data would be invaluable." I felt a mix of fear and something else. Curiosity, professional duty, the need to understand what was happening to us. "We'll try," I said. The evaluations that day were more extensive than before. Brain scans, detailed blood work, neurological assessments. They found the same elevated temperature and temporal misperception. But they also found something new. Both Avery and I showed unusual electrical activity in our prefrontal cortex. Not abnormal, just heightened. Like that part of our brain was more active than it should be. "This area is associated with decision-making and temporal processing," the technician explained. "The elevated activity might explain the time perception issues you're experiencing." That night, they conducted another sleep study. I expected the dreams to come. They did. This time I was underwater. Not drowning. Just suspended in blue-green water that felt warm and weightless. The white ring descended through the water above me, leaving a trail of light. It came down until it surrounded me, the ring passing over my body like a scanner. I felt cold spread across my skin. Not uncomfortable. just the sensation of being examined. Then the ring contracted. It shrank, growing smaller and tighter, until it was just a glowing circle around my wrist, exactly where the monitoring device was strapped. It pulsed once, and I felt a shock run up my arm. Not painful, just a jolt of energy that made my muscles twitch. I woke up. The room was dark. My wrist tingled where the monitor was attached. I looked down. The device was glowing faintly, pulsing in rhythm with my heartbeat. I touched it, and the glow faded. A technician entered immediately. "Your monitor just transmitted an anomalous reading. Are you all right?" "I'm fine. I had a dream, and the monitor was glowing." "Glowing?" "Yes, like it was activated by something." He checked the device, then the computer. "There's a spike in electrical activity at 0342 hours, right when you woke up. Heart rate jumped to 130, core temperature increased by 0.5 degrees, and the skin sensors registered a surge that's off the scale. What does that mean?" "I don't know. I need to show this to Dr. Tennant." An hour later, Dr. Tennant was in my room, reviewing the data on a tablet. He looked at the graph, then at me, then back at the graph. "This is extraordinary," he said. "Your body responded as if you'd received an electrical shock. But there was no external source. The surge came from within." "Within?" "Your own bioelectric field spiked, dramatically. For about 3 seconds, your body was generating electrical activity at levels we shouldn't be seeing outside of cardiac events. But your heart rhythm stayed normal. The surge was localized to your right arm." He examined my wrist where the monitor was attached. "Any pain? Burning sensation?" "No, just tingling. It faded after I woke up." He took photographs of my wrist from multiple angles. "If anything appears here, any marks or discoloration, call me immediately. This is unprecedented." Over the next 2 weeks, I wore the monitor constantly. It recorded normal data most of the time, but 3 times, always at night, always during dreams, it registered spikes. Not as dramatic as the first one, but clear surges in electrical activity. The dreams continued, always underwater, always the white ring descending, always the sensation of being examined or measured. I started keeping detailed notes, dream content, time of occurrence, physical sensations upon waking. The pattern was consistent. Avery experienced similar dreams, though her monitor didn't show the same electrical spikes. Dr. Tennant hypothesized that the phenomenon was affecting us differently, possibly based on our individual physiology or our roles during the encounters. On November 3rd, 3 weeks after the second encounter, I developed the mark. I woke up in the morning and felt my right wrist itch. I looked down and saw it, a perfect circle, pale against my skin, about 1 centimeter in diameter, right where the monitor had been glowing in my dreams. I called Dr. Tennant immediately. He arrived at my apartment 4 hours later with a portable medical kit. He examined the mark, photographed it, took skin samples, and ran a handheld scanner over it. "The tissue appears normal," he said. "No inflammation, no foreign material, just a pigmentation change. But the location is significant, right at the point where you experience the electrical surges. What does it mean?" "I think the encounters are leaving a physical imprint, not just psychological. Something about the exposure is altering your tissue at a level we can't fully measure yet." "Is it dangerous?" "We don't know. Previous marks haven't shown any progression or health impacts. They just persist. Some fade slightly over time, but they never completely disappear." "So I'm marked. Permanently?" "Yes." That word settled into my chest like a stone. Marked, tagged, identified as someone who'd had contact with something we couldn't explain or control. Over the next month, the encounters continued. Not always with the white ring, sometimes just with the dreams, sometimes with brief sightings of lights over the water. Each time, the monitoring device recorded data. Each time, my body showed responses that shouldn't be happening. Avery developed her mark on November 18th. Same location, same appearance. We were both carrying visible evidence now, physical proof that something had happened to us. In December, Dr. Tennant called me with news. "We've identified a pattern," he said. "The encounters are clustered. Geographic clusters, temporal clusters. We have multiple witnesses in the same areas experiencing events within similar time frames. Lake Michigan has the highest concentration, 15 cases in the past 3 years." What does that mean? It means whatever is causing this is focused on certain locations and certain individuals. We don't know the selection criteria, but there is a pattern. Can you predict when the next encounter will happen? Not with certainty, but based on your history, I estimate you'll have another significant event within the next 4 to 6 weeks. He was right. On December 29th, during a routine night patrol, the white ring appeared again. This time it was different. There were 3 of them, arranged in a triangle formation above the water, each one pulsing in sequence like a coordinated signal. Avery and I approached as Dr. Tennant had requested. We got within 50 yards. The rings didn't move, they just hovered, pulsing, watching. I took photographs. Clear, detailed photographs that showed the rings' structure, their luminescence, their perfect geometric precision. The radio stayed functional. Time stayed normal. No pulling force, no underwater craft. Just the 3 rings holding position, as if they were waiting for something. After 10 minutes, they rose simultaneously. They climbed straight up into the night sky, accelerating until they were just points of light. Then nothing. We returned to base and transmitted the photographs to Dr. Tennant. He called within an hour. "These are the clearest images we've ever captured," he said. "I need you both in Ann Arbor tomorrow. This changes everything." We drove there the next morning. Dr. Tennant had assembled a team. Physicists, engineers, medical researchers. They analyzed the photographs, ran simulations, measured every detail they could extract from the images. "The rings show no visible means of propulsion," one physicist explained. "No exhaust, no rotors, no apparent energy source. They're just there, maintaining position against gravity and wind resistance." "What are they?" I asked. "We don't know, but they're not natural phenomena. They're constructed, designed, by something with technology far beyond our current capabilities." Dr. Tennant pulled me aside later that day. "Eric, I need to ask you something. If you could speak to whatever's behind these encounters, what would you say?" I thought about it. I'd ask what they want. Why us? What's the purpose of marking us and monitoring us? Would you be willing to try? Try what? Communication. The next time you see the ring, try speaking to it, out loud. Document what happens. It might seem absurd, but we're past the point of conventional approaches. You think it would hear me? I think it's been watching you for months, examining you, maybe even trying to understand you. Communication might be the next step. I left the facility that evening with more questions than answers, but I also left with a sense of purpose. If the rings were going to keep appearing, if the marks were permanent, if the dreams were going to continue, then I wanted to engage with it. Understand it, or at least try. 2 weeks later, on January 12th, I had my chance. I was alone on a night patrol. Avery had called in sick with the flu. I was running a standard route when the white ring appeared. Just one this time. Hovering directly ahead, maybe 40 feet above the water, pulsing gently. I slowed the boat to idle and approached. When I was within 20 yards, I cut the engine. The boat drifted in the calm water. I stood at the bow and looked up at the ring. "I don't know if you can understand me," I said out loud, "but I need to know what you want, why you're doing this, why you marked us." The ring pulsed. Once, twice, 3 times. Each pulse felt deliberate, like a response. "If you can hear me, show me something, give me a sign." The ring descended. It came down slowly until it was level with me, maybe 10 feet away. I could feel warmth radiating from it. Not heat, just gentle warmth that made my skin tingle. The ring began to change. The light shifted from white to pale blue, then to green, then back to white. Colors cycling through in sequence. It was showing me something, demonstrating that it could respond. "Thank you," I said. "Can you tell me what you are, where you come from?" The ring pulsed again, and then images flooded my mind. Not words, just images. The lake from above, the shoreline, the marina, my boat, me standing on the deck looking up. Everything I was seeing in that moment, but from the ring's perspective. It was showing me what it saw, how it saw me. Then the images shifted. I saw other lakes, other shorelines, other people standing on boats looking up at rings of light. Dozens of them, hundreds maybe, all across the world, all throughout time. This wasn't new. This had been happening for longer than I could comprehend. The ring rose. It climbed back to its original height and pulsed one final time. Then it was gone. I stood there, trembling, trying to process what I'd just experienced. It had heard me, it had responded, and it had shown me that I was part of something much larger than I'd imagined. I called Dr. Tennant immediately and told him everything. He was silent for a long moment. "You made contact," he said finally. "Real contact." "Yes. How do you feel?" "Shaken. But also relieved. It's not hostile, it's curious. It's studying us. Or we're studying each other." That thought stayed with me. Maybe this wasn't just about them observing us. Maybe it was mutual. Maybe we were both trying to understand something neither of us fully grasped yet. I'm still on active duty, still running patrols on Lake Michigan. The encounters continue, though less frequently now. The mark on my wrist is permanent. The dreams still come. But I'm not afraid anymore. I'm part of something, a pattern that spans the Great Lakes and possibly the world. Other people have seen what I've seen. Other people carry the same marks. We're all connected by these encounters, by these moments when the normal rules break down and something extraordinary shows itself. I don't know what the end goal is. I don't know if there is an end goal. But I know I'm not alone. And I know that whatever these rings are, they're not here to harm us. They're here to observe, to document, maybe to communicate. And now that I've communicated back, maybe we can start to understand each other. That's where I am now. Marked, monitored, still waiting for the next encounter, but no longer afraid, just curious, just open to whatever comes next. Because the white ring over Michigan isn't the end of the story, it's the beginning.